Welcome back to the Comics Aficionados Live right here on Thinking Critical YouTube. We've got a great panel lined up. We've got some interesting things happening with comic books. We had a milestone. We had, basically the linchpin of digital comics in the U.S. market seems to be going down, and we're going to discuss it all with this fantastic panel. Gevian, we haven't seen you in weeks. What happened? Is it months now?
Just hanging out in the great unknown and working on stuff, waiting for things to come together. As I'm sure many on the panel know, sometimes with business, things are always in flux. So you got to just be flexible and stay in the game. But things are well. Family's doing well. Life is going good. Can't complain. But glad to be on the panel again.
I know about business, Gevian. ABC, always be closing, man.
There you go. And just make sure you avoid any involuntary manslaughter charges at the same time. But hey, that's a whole other story.
How are the pop-ups going? You still doing your pop-up stores in Chicago?
Yeah, they're going well. So I actually managed to line up a nice spot on 63rd Street. We're supposed to be meeting with this organization, which I'll plug, the Greater Southwest Development Corporation. They reached out to offer us a spot on 63rd, and I want to say it's Kedzie, but don't quote me on that. We'll post to the social media page. But we're looking to be at that spot on Saturdays and Sundays, beginning this month all the way through May. So we're looking forward to having that time at the extended venue and see what we can do pop-up shop-wise. But it's going well.
That's going to be on Saturdays, right?
It's going to be Saturdays and Sundays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Yep, Saturdays and Sundays. So we'll post all the information.
Chicago area, and you want to meet Gevian and see what Animated Concepts has got to offer. Go check it out.
Stop on through. Be glad to meet some of you guys in person. Most definitely.
Absolutely. Who else we got? Josh, you missed out last week. This week we don't get Doc because he's sick. Can you believe that guy?
What the hell? Come on, Doc.
Exactly.
How can you get sick with that beard and that voice and face? I feel like you'd fucking scare off viruses. What the fuck's going on?
I think so.
Yeah.
So you didn't read any comics this week?
No, I unfortunately haven't had a day off in 2 weeks. So I wasn't here last week because I had to go fire 4 people in my day job for stealing. So don't fucking steal. Stop.
Sounds like it's your fault though. Like you're the one that fired him, and then you had to work extra, and then you're complaining about it.
For real. No, I did. I got the message like, hey, these guys got to go. This is what's happening. Great. And then it was like, by the way, you're going to be here. And I was like, great.
You're covered.
Yeah. Well, sucked balls.
Let's see if we can take your mind off of all that and have a little bit of fun here today. What else we got? We got Jim from Weird Science. People loved our Nightwing 100 review.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. I realized there, I always thought, but you pretty much solidified the idea that a 7 out of 10, worst score you could ever give anything, because you get attacked by both sides, and that's what I've been getting. I've been getting crapped on from people who loved it, people who hated it.
Pretty generous.
You thought it was generous, yes, but then the people who loved it thought that it was, too low, too high, all these things. You did talk me down. I was at a 6. Still people hating on me.
That's still too generous.
Yeah, I know. The thing is, well, we might get into it. I'm telling you, now I'm going to argue here. There are some things in the run that are, admirable, maybe, but that was kind of garbage. But yes, at least I hated Batgirl, so there you go.
There you
go. Nothing good with Clue-Ran, I can tell you that. Who else we got? We got Drew from Comics Elite. Now, your Born of Blood issue 3 Kickstarter, is it live?
Yeah, it's live. It launched last night at 10 p.m.
I heard you were at $25.
Nice.
At least, yes. Yes.
No, you're at what? What are you at? 35?
$35.
No, 35,000.
Oh yeah. Sorry, we're at 36. Wow. We're at 36,675 now.
Congratulations, sir.
Yeah, 12 hours, and we broke day issue 1's record by a day and a half. So
yeah, great.
Did you and Sean celebrate by getting punched in the face?
I got punched in the face. Yeah, like right there. So yeah, it wasn't pretty. We didn't hit 50. We didn't hit 50 in the first 12 hours. So Sean wasn't happy.
Gotcha.
So, yeah,
you're gonna be okay. It looks like it hurts.
I'll live. I think I'll live.
So Drew and I are doing a fantasy football playoffs thing, and he's beating me. He's number one in our league.
He's number one? Yeah, me. This guy.
But you took Purdy, and he's the only reason you're number one. There's no way that guy's ever going to throw 4 touchdowns in the playoffs again this season.
Notice how every player I have is on to the second round. I'm getting double points now from all those guys. So, yeah.
Well, if they all lose this weekend, you won't get triple points.
It's a big if. I don't know. I don't think so.
We'll see what happens. I got most of my team going on to the second round as well. Unfortunately, I thought the Vikings were going to make it to the conference finals to play the 49ers, and that did not happen. So I messed that one up.
The comeback Kings couldn't do it. Yeah, go figure.
Yeah, my goodness. Who else we got? We got the man pouring the perfect cup of Joe. Eric O'Sullivan, Reverend Sully, the Sultan of Soup himself, the only man I know that's got a food and a comic book channel all in one.
Hello. Good morning. How is everybody?
Woo! What kind of coffee is that? Is that Pakistani blend? What do you got?
It's thank you for asking. It's a Colombian fair trade organic that was roasted from a green bean about 2 weeks ago. And so it's freshly roasted, freshly ground. And
you wasted green beans to roast your coffee?
Mm-hmm. No. I mean, I have my buddy Dell. He's got a coffee roaster thing. So he buys organic fair trade green beans from like the Pacific and from Central America and Africa, and roast these beans and just.
So when you say green beans, you're not talking about green beans that I eat. You're talking about
green coffee beans. Yeah, they come in unroasted, and it's just like then you roast them, you hear them crack. And it's just like this wonderful, experience. I've learned so much.
You ruined Thanksgiving. You could have used those green beans for green bean casserole, which is delicious.
Yeah,
that would have been a really crunchy. You wouldn't have to have the Ritz cracker topping for that one. They'd already be crunchy.
You do Ritz crackers. I do the onions.
Onion.
One auntie does Ritz crackers. The other, and my mom does the French's fried onions. Yes, so
I do the Ritz crackers on top of a tuna casserole that I learned from my grandma before she passed away, and it is absolutely amazing. It's the thing that I make my kids like the most.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
Yeah, they don't like everything else, but they like grandma's tuna casserole. Do you do tuna casserole at the restaurant? I know you're a chef.
No, but we do. No, actually, no, that's people love comfort food. People love casseroles, pasta casseroles, meatloaf. You'd be surprised, like how much meatloaf will sell. Ribs, it's just comfort food. Sweet potatoes, dude, we roast sweet potatoes, they're gone. We can't keep up with it.
I have a meatloaf story. Do you want to hear it?
I love meatloaf.
This is from my time in the military. Meatloaf. I just found out I was going to Afghanistan. I was a tech sergeant at the time, so I was going to be in charge of the little group that was going to training. And I meet all the little kids that are going to be coming with me. They're all like within maybe 2 years of being in the military for the first time. And one of them is an idiot, and his name is St. George. And I want these guys to get to know me because none of them met me before. So we go to like the coolest, trendiest restaurant in Anchorage, Alaska. And it's like one of those hippie restaurants. So, the food's going to be good. It's real pretentious stuff, which, I'm not pretentious myself, but I do like pretentious food. That's why I go to Panera Bread. So we go to this restaurant, and they have a menu. And there's a meatloaf with mac and cheese, which is a great combination. But there was another option called cowboy meatloaf, which was like a meatloaf sandwich.
Sounds gay.
Nice.
That's part of the story, Josh. We're getting there.
I can't quit you, meatloaf.
In St. George, he asked me, he's like, I really want the cowboy meatloaf, but I want the meatloaf with mac and cheese. I said, when the waiter gets here, tell him you want the meatloaf with mac and cheese, cowboy my meatloaf. And that's what you do. And he goes, you think I should do that? And everyone at the table said no, because that doesn't sound right. And then the waiter shows up, and he's wearing like an ascot. And he's like, hey, guys, what can I get you to drink? And, I get an iced tea or whatever. And he walks away, and we're all kind of chuckling. And he comes back to take our order. And St. George goes, I will take the meatloaf and mac and cheese. And we're in uniform, by the way. Cowboy my meatloaf. And then he tells the waiter, no homo. And of course, I'm the highest ranking guy, right? Because I'm in charge. And I'm like, and the waiter goes, did he just no homo me? And I was like, I do not believe that's what happened, sir. And it kind of like just looks and turns around and walks away. I look over, I was like, what the fuck is your problem, man? Because I
don't ask, don't tell, brother. Oh, geez.
And he goes, what are you talking about? I was like, you just no homoed our gay waiter. He goes, how can you tell he's gay? And everyone at the same time goes, how can you not? Like, he's wearing an ascot, man. Don't wear that. It's got to be gay. But
Hey,
we almost
Fred
had
like
an
girls.
incident with the community.
Bottled water. I love my dead gay son. Perrier.
This is the same guy that when we were in Afghanistan, the Navy lieutenant we were working for, he had a special recognition for physics from the Naval Academy, and he showed it to us when we were going through training. You know what that means, Josh? Pretty smart. They didn't give those away every year. It looked like every 4 years, maybe someone would get it. His name was on the board, so he's like borderline genius. We're sitting there talking to our bosses, and someone tells the lieutenant, the meeting's at 1600. Eric and St. George elbows in, and he goes, "That's 4 p.m., sir." I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" He's like, "What?" I was like, "You think he's fucking stupid? He can't tell time?" I was like, "Get the fuck out of here." I was like, I know he didn't lose it on people when I was in uniform, but that guy did it. I had to dress him down.
That's funny. That's a good one, man.
That's my meatloaf story.
One's in the chat if you love meatloaf, please.
That's what my meatloaf story is. My wife makes a real shitty meatloaf, so mine's not as good.
Did she put hard-boiled eggs in it?
She puts a bunch of crazy shit.
I saw someone put hard-boiled eggs in their meatloaf and they served it to me. I was like, "You are out of your mind."
You beat the egg first raw, and then you mix it in the meatloaf, and
exactly.
Then
it's a binding agent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Two
boiled egg and a meatloaf.
Josh and his chicken fried bacon. Two things real quick. One,
yes.
Wes, you do a gay voice better than I do. So what kind of work did you do when you were overseas? Two, the chat is having a meltdown whether Fred from Scooby-Doo is gay or not because he wears an ascot. And it's getting very heated and very personal.
That's because Fred likes
That's
girls,
70s. That's
but he
a different
loves
time,
traps.
a different culture. You know what I'm saying? It felt like he and Daphne were a thing, though, right? Was she weird?
Yes.
Or was she just a fag hag?
I thought it was a beard.
You'll never
Josh.
know.
Well, if you watch the HBO Max series, you'll find out. But anyway.
I'll pass.
Wes is a Chiefs fan. Yes, Wes is from the Kansas City metropolitan area. And we are in the playoffs today, sir. Boom. Very exciting stuff. I don't know. Let's talk about these. We got a few super chats we'll hit there, but that was my meatloaf story.
Comic books? You sure?
Wacky Zashi's Tea House says, "I missed the old Comixology guided view experience. Amazon chews up and spits out another property. Does the panel know if digital sales even count?" They do count. Yeah. They certainly are accounted for in the overall sales for the comic book industry. But they were flat for essentially 10 years, had a spike during COVID. But from what we understand, or I understand, because of what happened with Comixology last year, we're going to see them about halve and actually go below what they were a decade ago. Comixology basically being broke and destroyed digital sales for 2022 is what we're going to see when the final numbers come out. So thank you very much for that. And congratulations. Happy birthday last weekend. And we'll definitely get Gray back here on the channel again. I think a lot of people enjoyed his appearance. Miss Maria, how can I store physical comics in a small space?
Short box.
Short box, yeah. I just made the switch. We have long boxes. I get like 9 of them. When they fill up, they weigh like over 50 pounds. And
do you stack up? Do you stack forward? What do you do? Do you hang them so they're out of the way?
They're pretty much stacked. Yeah, they're just like raised off the floor, but still like, you know.
If you have high ceilings, maybe you can create a loft and put your short boxes up there and they'll be out of the way.
That's a good idea.
But then you have to build a ladder. It could be difficult. Doc and I are actually going to have a video when he's feeling better about comic book collecting, and everyone seemed to enjoy the last conversation so much.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was.
Good. He's going to talk about some scams and stuff like that you can avoid. Lane says, "Drew has me scared from Batgirls 14. Scared? Why are you scared?
I think probably what we said, like what happens in that book. It can be taken a couple of ways. What's professed in that book. It's when you have one.
Jim, how did you take it? Because you like Batgirls more than most.
Yeah. I took it as they said it was a silent issue. That was bullshit. That got reviewed way too high because of it. And you can realize that people who can't write a regular issue really can't tell a story in a silent issue. And as Drew's saying, there's things implied that are a little wacky.
Yeah. Wacky tobacco. Are they on the weed?
Maybe that would help. I don't know. I mean, I'm telling you, this story is almost like we'll do a silent issue because we don't have enough time, and let's make it easy and let's just throw shit together. It was bullshit. It was. But it got rated. The reviews are through the roof, though. It's an aggregate score of 9.1 on the Comic Book Roundup, which is insane.
Same one as Nightwing 100.
Yep. Yeah.
Common Sense wants to know, Drew, if you were in a Saul game room and one way to survive, you have to read a Shazam comic, would you read Josie Campbell's Shazam #4 or Black Adam #7 from Christopher Priest?
Black Adam #7. Not by much, but I'll take that one.
I haven't read the new Champion of Shazam or whatever that thing is.
It's terrible. She's
not a comic writer. I don't know what she's even doing there. Like, that made no sense. She has a decent artist on the book too. It made no sense.
Doc Shaner. Oh. Doc Shaner's a solid artist, and it's a shame he's wasted.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There you go. Callum wants to know, Velma is another example of when you give women an IP and they use it for their own therapy sessions. She-Ra, She-Hulk, Star Wars, future Marvel. All right, Josh. You're the only one that can respond to this without getting in trouble. Is he right?
Let me switch to my lesbian talk theme. Wait, hold on. Let me get my boobs together before I say this. I don't know, man. I haven't watched Velma. I've heard terrible things. I think on IMDb it's got a 1.5 rating, so that should tell you something. Women
ruin all IPs? Is what Callum was saying.
Not all, but like we're not picking the best person to tell the story. That's for sure. There have been good examples of women coming out and telling great stories.
Absolutely,
it can happen.
And Asceni didn't ruin Daredevil; she made it better.
Agreed. Now Catwoman, she ruined. Daredevil, she made better.
Sometimes you swing for the fences, and if you try to hit a home run, you're going to strike out sometimes.
Hey, even female director Alexi Alexander, Green Street Hooligans, great film. Punisher Warzone, terrible.
Who's the lady that did Point Break?
Catherine Bigelow.
Yeah.
Near Dark.
Yeah, she can knock it out the park sometimes.
Yeah.
See,
did she do the Hurt Locker?
Hurt Locker,
yes.
And that movie is absolutely
Zero Dark 30.
Zero Dark 30.
Zero Dark 30 is better. There's some reality to that one, but the Hurt
one.
Locker was one of the biggest pieces of shit I've ever watched in my life. I've never seen anyone misconstrue what it's like to be a soldier or someone in the military. It's like, we're just adrenaline junkies. We want our wives and kids to stay home while we go and try and die. That's what we're doing. No one's trying to survive this thing. We all wanted to be there, right, Drew?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to be in Baghdad for 6 months getting mortared every fucking day. Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, getting shot at was a lot of fun.
Oh,
I'm glad I left my family behind and I don't want to go back and see it. Like, get out of here with that shit, lady. And you cannot walk off the fob unnoticed.
No, it's like he's in fucking prison. He's going to prison for doing that shit.
It's like general orders. That's probably number one in Afghanistan and Iraq. No leaving. Well, general order number 1 is no drinking, but number 2, no leaving.
You don't leave. Yeah, it's like, how the fuck can you leave in the first place? It's like,
were you in Iraq? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, very nice. What's that?
Were you in Iraq, Eric? Is that what you're trying to show us? Or you just have a coin? You're muted.
Hey, you're on mute. Hey, you're excited, but you're on mute.
Thank you. Yeah, I am on mute. Sorry. No, a buddy of mine was stationed in Iraq, in Baghdad. He was an attaché to an admiral. He sent this to me in 2011 when he was over there for 18 months. And God bless all of you veterans. Thank you. I never knew what a challenge coin was. And
I love
what I mean?
Yeah. Never go to a bar without one.
Catherine Bigelow. She's had some hits. Point Break, Zero Dark 30, pretty good. Hurt Locker, absolute garbage, if you ask me. Cal Lyle, is Tom Taylor trying to imply something about himself or his beliefs with the lollipop thing and thinking murders? People should get hugs
and just go free.
I'm pretty sure most of what he's doing in Nightwing and Superman is just social commentary.
Yeah, remember, this guy lives in Australia, so there's a very different way of thinking.
You know what's crazy is they imprison people for not getting a vaccine, but he wants no bail. Mm-hmm. Like, you just threw away the key on people because they didn't want your medicine, and you were okay with that.
Priorities.
My goodness. Yeah, you murdered somebody. No big deal. No. You're probably innocent. Oh, my goodness. Seamus McCallaghan. That is a beautiful Scottish name. Are these One Dad Day comics out of continuity? Is anything in continuity anymore? Bane seems set between murdering Alfred and dying in Arkham, but didn't he go straight to Arkham and die? DC is stupid now. So these One Bad Day comics are supposed to be attempts to take the other villains outside of Joker and do something like the Killing Joke or whatever, like a seminal story. Obviously, with Bane, you don't need to do that because you have Nightfall. You don't really need to do that with Two-Face because the Long Halloween exists. Those stories, those seminal stories already exist for the characters. So I don't believe they're in continuity, but they're supposed to be game changers for the villains as far as I know, Jim.
Yeah, they're kind of askew, but everything is nowadays. It's more of like not an Elseworld, but a what if kind of thing. And really, with the Killing Joke, it's the same deal. If it's that popular, then it becomes continuity. If it's not, it's not. And yeah, the Bane one just ended up feeling like okay, well, what are we going to do? And really, for the most part of these, they feel very lazy at this point of, okay, what is Bane's, one bad day? Well, let's get the one thing he did Nightfall and then say that was his one bad day because it never got better from that. And it did that. So, yeah, it just these things where you would hope they were like passion project, they're assignments and they look at the tropes.
Cash
and
grabs.
throw out. Yeah, that's all it is. So don't worry about it. Yeah.
There is no continuity, though. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah, it's weird. The continuity, no time, the timeline's wonky. And they even had a deal this week with Leah Williams saying that she actually did research for Power Girl and they laughed at her and said, well, what are you doing research? Just do what you want. We're loose over here. And, there you go.
I read it. She did no fucking research.
No, she didn't. And really, they're making up powers so that you don't have to learn the rest of the stuff.
She's Power Girl. That's her power. She has many powers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, exactly. She has even more.
Miss Maria says, does anyone remember Flim Flam from Scooby-Doo?
Yes.
I like Flim Flam.
Better than Scrappy-Doo?
Anything beats Scrappy-Doo.
Scrappy-Doo I liked. I don't understand what Scrappy hate. I like Scrappy-Doo.
I remember Scooby Dum, his southern cousin.
I thought he was his drug-addled cousin.
Scooby Dum was fun. Yeah.
Scooby-Dee was cool too.
I like Vincent Price more than Scooby-Doo. I'll say that.
Remember when the Harlem Globetrotters would do a crossover with everything, including Gilligan's Island and Scooby-Doo? Why don't we have anything like that anymore?
That's put Gilligan's Island and Scooby-Doo in the same multiverse, right?
Yep. Scooby-Doo movies. I'll tell you, because my daughters, they watched Riverdale. They were waiting passionately for Scooby-Doo to show up in Riverdale. And it's because of watching those Scooby-Doo movies. It's like in their minds, because Josie and Pussycats would show up in Scooby-Doo. So in their minds, it was like, there's no reason why Scooby and the gang shouldn't show up in Riverdale. But that's how we think, man. It's like everything's one big multiverse, if not omni.
Wow.
Wow, this is for you, Josh. Are people who work on the Harry Potter projects going to have to hire private security? It's just a game. What's he talking about?
I don't know.
Oh, I can tell you about that.
He hasn't had a day off in 2 weeks, people. He's barely.
I'm a little.
I'm assuming this has to do with J.K. Rowling getting threats and people associated with Harry Potter projects getting threats because of it.
Yep. Because she's going to get paid for it and royalty wise, but she's not involved with the actual creation of the game. But the mere fact that she's getting money, people are calling for boycotts of the game. So because of her trans views.
Proven that that's not going to work with Harry Potter. It's a little bit too much of a culture.
And people who engage with that property don't care. Nobody cares about that. My daughters are both big, huge Harry Potter fans. That's like the furthest thing from their minds, much less their conversation.
Yeah, my 7-year-old, we watched Harry Potter last year. That's what he wore for Halloween. He loves it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Daniel Beatty, 80s here, baby. Hanna-Barbera is king. Man, I remember that. I missed the Hanna-Barbera Saturday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
We got the 4 hours of cartoons.
Super Friends.
Well, I'm talking about like the Dungeons and Dragons. They had a Rubik's Cube one there for a while that I liked.
All Laser Tag Academy.
Man, that's some really good stuff back in the day.
There were 2 Shazam cartoons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those are great.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the reminder on that one, sir. Let's get into the channel. Oh my goodness, I haven't done the topics, but we're going to talk about Comixology dying first. It basically is being disbanded due to all the shutdowns going on at Amazon. That is absolutely an Amazon tactic. You go into like a niche industry, you buy everything up, and then once there's no competition, you basically just kill it off because you don't want to pay for it anymore. That's kind of what they do. And it sounds like Comixology probably isn't going to be, well, it's not useful now. Let's be honest. They never actually fixed it after they broke it, but it's only going to get worse. And I can tell you as an overseas reader, that is very, very difficult. Josh, how did DC and Marvel not see the forest through the trees on this one, that digital comics are going to be the future of their industry, and then seed everything and give it away to Amazon?
You know, what's crazy is there's a point in time where they did see that this was going to be the future. And it was back when they were launching their whole DC Universe thing. And I remember we were at Comic-Con. We were doing a press junket with DC. They had rented out a like giant room in a separate hotel. And they had all these different virtual experiences you were going to do. And one of the main sections they had was like digital comics, how they're going to make it more interactive, why they're trying to compete with Comixology. And then they kind of just went nowhere with it. So it seems like they had the idea there, and then probably lack of funding.
Why does everyone think that digital comics to be big, they need to be interactive and need to have like motion and stuff? It just needs to be easy to read and have really good definition, so where you zoom in, you can see all the wonderful artwork.
100% agreed. And I think that's kind of what we talked about. Because one of the things that they were like hyped about is like, yeah, we're gonna have this set up so you can read comics on your TV. And I'm like, I don't need to read it on my TV. I just want to read my comic. Yeah, I don't know. I think they had ideas.
Remember they thought motion comics was going to be the thing? It's like, that's just a cartoon, sir.
Yeah, no, they didn't. They didn't think motion comics. We blatantly asked, like, are you going back to motion comics? And
no, this is like 2005 or whatever. Marvel started doing that.
Yeah, no, I remember. But there was concern that because of this whole like read your comics on TV, they were going to push motion comics again. And this was probably like 2017. And they were blatantly big no on that, thank God. But yeah, it seemed like they knew that this is something they needed to pursue, and they never actually put the money and effort or employees behind it to make it happen.
Gevian, I know that you are a connoisseur of the comic book industry. You've got a startup company. You've definitely looked into all the means of distribution. I'm certain that you are aware that digital and having a digital strategy that's comprehensive and smart and doesn't rely completely on Amazon might be the way to go.
Yeah, it does. But I think what the problem is that it sounds like a lot of the industry leaders don't understand why digital comics should work and in what ways they should work in relation to the customers. So like you guys said, why is there always this need to make it something more interactive than what it is that they're just basically throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. Because what they don't understand is that you just have to be able to, like these guys said, you have to be able to get the book into a place where it's easy to read, where I can just flip through it. You got all these tablets now, so I don't see why that was a problem. And if you want to zoom in, you can zoom in. If you want to zoom out, then you zoom out. But I've never been a fan.
Because Kindle isn't designed for picture books; it's regular books, so it doesn't have to do a whole lot.
No,
you need to be able to blow up the text or whatever, and that's about it, and turn the page. Yeah. When it comes to comic books, there's all that art. That's the interactivity, is going in there and seeing all the wonderful art and the action. You want to be able to get in there.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I don't think they fundamentally understand that. I just don't think they fully understand. Like when I did my research when it came to digital comics, it was basically I couldn't understand why somebody would pay the same amount of money for something that was delivered digitally as something that was physical. But one of the great enlightenments that I got was that even when it came to regular books, people were like, "I'll pay the full price. I'll pay the same price for a print for a physical digital copy as a print copy," because their whole thing was that it was about being able to lug it around, portability, and not having to worry about storing it someplace. And the other part was that was the only way they could get the material in the first place, because part of it was that there aren't a lot of comic book stores, and a lot of accessibility where we live at. So those are the three problems you're solving with digital, and that's why digital, in my opinion, was always flat, with the exception of like say Batman or some outlier books like Batman. You're always seeing that it was pretty much 10% of what the physical copy sales were, and then when you look at the pricing of it, just to begin with, I mean, at one point, now who was it? DC was pricing it in at the beginning as at least $1 for the digital copy. I think Marvel, it almost seems like they were always giving it away for kind of free. So it was always like just sort of like an add-on. There wasn't like a real push for like digital to become like the next big thing, even though there's clearly a marketplace out there, as demonstrated by webtoons. It was there. They just never did anything about it. And it seems like they never made a good faith effort to like give customers what they wanted. And that's the big problem in the industry. Aaron Sparrow brings this up a lot, and I think he hit on this in the right way, and definitely before I realized it. Now, a lot of what goes on in comic books, and I would probably say in pop culture entertainment in general, it's a customer service issue. This is not about distribution or pricing and some level of pricing, but it's like these guys are not delivering what people want. They just basically like, it's a lot of push marketing. This is what we're going to give you, and take it or leave it. And much like the Velma thing, that's why for all these people talking about this hate watch thing, you need to get off that hate watching thing, man. Just get off it. You are sending them the wrong signal when you do that.
Exactly.
Every time.
I will say, I know one of the big things that kind of probably hindered digital comics were publishers trying to figure out their role in digital comics without completely damaging comic shops. And I know that was kind of like a back and forth. If you push digital too hard, we're going to kill like our kind of like bread and butter. You know, which talking about this now and looking at what comic publishers are doing, it just kind of makes that argument laughable. But 5 to 10 years ago, it was a very intense conversation of how we see this is the future. We see that this is the way the media is going to go. We don't want to leave the people that have supported us for decades just out in the dust. How do we find this balance? And that balance didn't do well.
Yeah, but that was a problem with their argument, was that it was too binary, if I'm using that word right. It was like I don't think people realized it was and you know, and of course it was an emerging technology, if you will, it was an emerging marketplace, but it was really two different customers. One customer really, in a sense, had nothing to do with the other. Like for me, for instance, the only reason I'm even thinking about picking up, like, say, I don't know if they even have any more DC Unlimited or any of these other things, is because I have gotten to the point in life I can't store any more physical comics, much less move them when I go. But if I want to just read something, I just need to be able to read something. But the price points, you know, but that price point, if I had to do like $3.99 or $4.99 for a digital comic, oh hell no, I'm not doing. I'm not doing that. But in terms of subscription service, yeah, exactly, to keep on top of it. That's how I would come into the digital space. But it became clear about during that flat period, it became clear those were two different audiences. So I think we're not doing a good job in the industry of actually talking to and listening to customers, because they're making it clear what they're going to support and how they're going to support it. But for some reason, this industry just seems bullheaded and just doing what they want to do. And it's like, okay, I mean, you could do that. But like I said in the chat, when my 13-year-old daughter sees the Velma trailer and says, "You're ruining my childhood," and she's 13. She's 13. It's like,
that's funny, dude.
Come on,
that's
guys.
Great. I have a question.
Come on.
I have a question. What happens to your pre-existing digital collection? I haven't touched digital comics in like years. Remember, like over a decade ago, Marvel Comics had like all their Ultimate Comics, and they had those weird panel progressions. And that's the extent of my digital comics experience. You have you must have like virtual bins of funny books. Like, what happens to those? Are they yours to keep?
So I don't think the service itself is dead. I think we're just kind of like saying, hey, it's practically dead because of how many people were cut and they're losing all their support. So how are you going to keep it running with this? But no, that's a valid question. You know, because even when you buy a digital comic, there's a notice after you purchase or before you actually purchase that this is the digital comic, yada, 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 yada. And I think there's even stuff about like, you don't actually own this. So you're basically leasing or renting the comic.
Yeah.
But all software.
But Eric, you're doing that. The idea, though, that's what makes manga, and that's why they're succeeding. You end up getting the digital chapters, but people still will end up buying the trades and volumes because that's the physical thing that they can keep, and that's the deal. The funny thing is that you end up saying like DC, Marvel, they can't end up figuring this out. The weird thing is, and about the manga, DC had a very manga-like structure back in like 2012 when they had the digital first stuff, and they had things coming out each day. Each day had a digital cut. That's how I got into digital comics and actually switched over to all digital because of those. Because there were stuff like, you know, Batman Beyond 2.0 or Batman 66, stuff like that, that was very manga-esque in how they released it, how they did the deal. And it's
Smallville.
weird because, and Smallville was really good too. And I liked a lot of those, but it's one of those things where they seem to be always behind, even when they end up doing something right, they mess it. And then, like Josh said, they were so big and loyal to the comic book shops instead of treating the digital as almost like a comic shop in itself, because there are a lot of people who can't get to a shop. I hear, and Wes had a deal about worldwide. I'm here in the Philadelphia area. The closest shop I have to me right now is almost an hour and 10 minutes away.
I've been saying that for years.
Yeah, it's not just worldwide; it's everywhere now, and that's a problem. That's a big deal. So yeah, they have to stick to something. They have to come up with a solid plan. Everybody's trying to like reinvent the plan every half a year. It just doesn't work that way.
It needs to be accessible and affordable.
Yeah, it's easy, right? That's the deal. That's what you have to do, and yet they want to change up things and do all these other things.
The annual subscription like prices, if you want to get like the bundle for DC Infinite Universe or Marvel Unlimited, it's like these are like $10 a month. That's the same price as Netflix.
Yeah, streaming service. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like not going to happen.
Only the most hardcore readers are ever going to think that's a good deal. You already have them. You need to get something that seems like a good deal and appealing to prospective new readers.
And I mean, besides all that we touched on, and Wes, you touched on in your video, a lot of the comics suck too. So when you're paying all this stuff, and you're like, if you're going to get any sort of service and it sucks, you're going to drop it. So they have to do that too. I mean, that's the basis.
That's why the streaming, the on demand service, or the bundle. The subscription thing for DC is important because DC's like got some of the best-selling graphic novels of all time. Those are some of the most well-known comic stories ever. The Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, and stuff like that. So there's good stuff there that's least in the back thing, but
And Dan DiDio was a lot against the digital for a while, and his big worry at that point was that the trades would stop selling. That was his really only.
It's going to sell more trades when people get invested in the story.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, that's the problem. He was looking at it in that negative view and not thinking that it could expand things. I mean, it really can.
Yeah, they don't have a good vision of the long game. They don't understand that you're creating a pipeline that it's not going to pay off in the first 3 to 6 months. It's going to pay off in years. My daughter started off with getting something digital with this Raven Loves Beast, Beast Boy Loves Raven thing, and her whole thing for months was every time we would go to the free comic book day, and she would get excited and pick it up, and it wasn't the whole story. She was tired of getting gypped on that. So I finally, for graduation, went out and got her the original graphic novel. Now she wants to read the other one. She found out about the other two, the Beast Boy and Raven. That's how you build this audience up. It's not going to be something where it happens, within a year or to meet whatever, sales goal you're meeting to keep your stock price up. This is something that all of us who are sitting here talking about comics right now are interested in all of these properties. This started way back when, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And the reason why you can milk all of this money out of us now is because of time. Time and investment, and that's what it is. And they've lost that discipline to understand. You do a little bit of something here, and you plant some seeds, and you got that big fat forest, 10, 15 years in the future. And they went too hard with the direct market. That's something that it comes up every once in a while, but it was like they saw that easy money in the direct market, and they forgot that even though newsstands were away for a different reason, you needed to have some kind of a loss leader market where you could put it out there where at least you were getting the product out in front of people, because if they loved it enough, like Wes would say, much like I did, then you would go track down a local comic book shop to get all the back issues and everything else and all the new ones before they hit the newsstands and everything else. They just muffed it. That's all.
Yeah. And I keep, you hear these arguments, and it's kind of funny. A lot of these arguments you heard about digital music, digital movies, games. I mean, these are the same things, but those I have 5 kids. They would not go. And I know people sit there and say, I wish we had the spinner rack at the supermarket, things like that. My kids aren't going to grab something off a spinner rack. They're going to get digital, and you end up, and the spinner rack would be nice for us to see. Oh my, I remember that. But my kids would laugh at me, and they would buy things. They buy things digital. I mean, the idea of not owning it yourself. I heard all these arguments with video games, but my kids haven't bought a video game physically in 10 years.
But see, that's different. But see, that's different. See, because my kids, they do the physical, but it's for different reasons. And I talked about.
But do they do the physical more of the trades, like in a bookstore?
Yes,
like
because
that's different. Yeah,
because it's a different reason. So for me, my daughter, it's a totally philosophical thing. For her, it's like, if I'm supposed to spend less time on a digital device, how do I do that by reading digital books? So that's why she reads digital books. My other daughter, she prefers to print the physical stuff because she just likes the feel of the paper. When it comes to video games, and I've argued with this with people many times, the difference between video games being adopted digitally quicker than they were physically is because the actual medium itself has always been a TV screen.
Yeah,
that's how you play a video game. So for me to have a digital thing, other than the fact, do I feel comfortable paying for a license to play that game as opposed to having a copy? So when that company goes out of business or shuts down, I don't have access to that game anymore. And that's only for people who are really, really into video games. But other than that piece, when you're talking about comics digitally and physically, there are a variety of reasons you can sort of categorize them for why people do digital and physical. But I don't think our industry understands any of that. Yeah. So they end up taking a very shotgun-based approach distribution-wise to something where they're not solving the problem for anybody.
And again, the big play is that manga's, killing everyone, and they do a combo. I mean, you have people in the chat
because they like those stories. They like those stories, and that's literally pretty much the only place you can get it. Because because other than the trades, which I've tried to reach out to a couple of guys for the pop-up shop to get stuff, and it's like it pretty much seems like Viz is the only place to be able to get it without it and not being spotty. But the thing is that manga was very clear from the beginning about a few things. It's black and white. You're going to read it backwards. It's disposable. It's pretty affordable, and for the most part, if you like the stories and with those guys, they're much more one and done. That's not, to me, when it looks like manga, that's not necessarily a collector's market. That's a reader's market. They read it for the stories. If they're buying the trade, they're buying the trade because they just love the story that much. They want to keep it, much like you want to keep a Harry Potter book if you read it in the library and you decide to want to have a copy of it. Yeah.
Josh, Eric, you were really excited there for a moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was literally asking Nerdy Girl Creates this morning over Twitter. I was like, hey, I found my old Scott Pilgrim books when I'm diving through my my long boxes. And so they're like, the week, he says, they're digest size. And I'm like, no, I know my terminology. Those are tankobons. Because I listen to you guys and gals. and I'm like, but I mean, I looked in my Overstreets and it's the Oni Press, Scott Pilgrim. Oh, hey, look, they're still have a value of $12, their cover price. But I'm like, oh, that's $72 worth of comic books. And it's like, so I was just like, they don't increase in value,
Yeah, but there's different. I mean, there's a collector's market, and those people absolutely need to be.
But I was asking her, mangas don't really increase in value, like American floppies.
In your heart, they do.
Your heart, they do.
We're really
indeed.
I don't know. It feels like a pretty bad thing here. Like this, I think this is a little bit more of a bigger deal than I think people are letting on here, Jim.
Yeah, I think it is. I think they have to solve it because and the idea of the big two not really getting it, that hurts everybody. I mean, if the big two end up hurting the things, then how are these indie stuff and all that, how are they going to end up, working out in the end? Because it topples all down, and they didn't react enough. The thing is, when we're saying all this, and you had that big push during the lockdown and COVID, that seemed to be okay, we get it now, let's go.
Yeah, but what was Marvel's strategy? Let's make a bunch of comic books that we would never print because no one would pay for them.
Yeah,
and give them away on the digital.
And even feels like some of those, like X-Men Green, let's trigger people so they talk about it so that they'll go buy it, and then you realize at the end it just sucks. I mean, there's no reason. And here's the thing: like my Marvel Unlimited, it ran out, and I didn't renew. I didn't really need to. And the same thing, I didn't up for the DC stuff. But again, I also get review copies, so that's beside the point.
The DC Universe, Infinite Universe, is the better app, and it has a better idea. Because you get like almost full access for your monthly subscription. And if you play the Ultra price, you get your comic books in 2 weeks after print rather than 90 days.
And you have that, and still I didn't re-up that. But my manga, my Shonen Jump app, it actually went up in price, God forbid, to what it normally is for most people around the world, to $2.99. And I was like, really? Like, I left. I'm like, usually a price hike, you're like, oh, crap. There was no even ifs, ands, or buts. Okay, boom, $2.99, and I get everything day and date, and that is.
And it suggests stuff for you, Jim. It reminds you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Don't forget about it.
And that's the weird deal. And again, when I started reading comics, I only started in 2012. And the digital first stuff that DC had got me involved, and I wanted to read more than I wanted to read more characters, more things. And it seemed when they did that, DC like really were trying to treat. Remember when Jim Lee, that was what he was the head of. You ended up. It felt like it meant so. It felt like it was a quality product. Now, like you said, Wes, the stuff that Marvel's doing, it just feels like leftovers. Let's throw that out there. It's a goof, and it just doesn't feel like it's needed or necessary.
Let's hear from the peoples. This is what Darth Bobcat has to say. Assassination of Comixology by the coward Amazon. Absolutely. He destroys so much stuff. Walmart does the same thing. I hate that business strategy. Callum Lyle says, the only thing that made me happy about Leah Williams was her Deja Thoris crossover was retcon because it was her trying to make Deja gay.
Well, I'm gonna say this. My only thing with that was when I first saw that come up, I thought he said cosplay, so they had me on the internet for 5 minutes.
You searching?
Seriously typing.
We don't want to see the search history.
She had a Deja Thoris series? I read the Dan Abnett one. It was all right. I wouldn't read anything Leah Williams. Did everyone like her Power Girl? No. Doesn't sound like
Was it
cosplay or crossover?
Crossover. Daniel Beatty, Comixology was the Big Two's best way to compete in any way with manga. Huge loss. Absolutely. The fact that they just gave the digital space away to another competitor and allowed it to be taken over by another corporation. Corporations are ultimately going to be what destroys comic books as we know them.
Yep.
It's going to end up having to rebuild itself after these guys chew through everything and destroy it, unfortunately.
Much like the 90s.
Yeah. Darth Bobcat, why don't they do why they don't do digital? Marvel and DC aren't in the comic book industry. They sell collectibles. Can't do cover variant tricks on digital comics. The actual content and story don't matter. You can do that with the crypto and stuff like that. You can do stuff like that.
I can say from my experience going to retailer summits, like Diamond Retailer Summits, when this was a topic of conversation, I do remember at the time back in, I think it was 2018, 2019 at the Retailer Summit in Chicago, Gevian, you might have been there. I'm not sure. But I do know retailers, they went hard in the paint against CB Cebulski for Comixology a day. They're releasing comics, I think, a day early, and like $2 or $3 cheaper. And they were getting ready to raise pitchforks and fires against the guy. And so I think there's been a lot of pushback from retailers on digital too.
They've never understood. I always use an example of The Economist. The Economist was a print magazine that resisted going into digital for a very long time because they did not move into digital until they got enough market research. They got enough market research of their customers where they saw that enough people had adopted digital to move over to it. The reason why so many print magazines, newspapers, publications, whatever it is, jump from physical to digital, because the advertisers, whom are basically the primary revenue source for most print publications, had decided that digital was the future, and that's why everybody jumped over. Not the customers. And when you're dealing with comics, advertisers are not your customers, your readers. your collectors, your speculators are your customers. And so that's why the way that Marvel and DC approach digital, like this kind of all in, let's forget the local comic book shops and go day and day going all in. That's why it never made sense, because it wasn't reflective of what the actual marketplace customers wanted.
Yeah, Sports Illustrated did the same thing. They waited so long that ESPN had the entire market by the time they started the website.
Yep.
And they were basically dead in the water. Kyle and Lyle, if someone was at the Jim Lee panel, he's drawing, making no eye contact with anyone, and was asked, why do you allow this mess? What do you answer? I'm sure he would answer. I don't know if you'd have a good one.
Yeah.
What do you think, Josh?
He would have an answer. I've got a long history of saying, like, if we could get Jim Lee as a leader as he is when he's doing these drawing panels, like, DC would be in a much better place, because the way he communicates during those panels is how he should have communicated as a leader, discussing what's going on, what their plan is, because it's like a different person. Like, when he's drawing and sitting there doing it, he seems passionate.
Yeah. Scribbler Jones, recommendations for approaching digital comics as an indie. I'm assuming this is as an indie creator. Well, you got to take the good with the bad. If you put out a PDF, it's going to get shared. Yeah. There's no way you can stop it. So, do you want to be able to get on Comixology? Back in the day, that was an option, but I heard that was a real pain in the ass, and it wasn't very reliable anyway. So there needs to be a new competitor, someone to take over the space and take it seriously. But, releasing PDFs is difficult. What would you recommend, Jermaine?
That's a hard question. All I would say is, if you're doing it, it's just a cash flow issue. You're going to have to be able to hang in there long enough to build up an audience that'll be willing to just pay for it outright. And to Wes's point, you just have to realize that there's going to be a certain amount of piracy that goes along with it. Which your goal is always the first rule of I would say of business, if not business investing, is your first rule is don't lose money. So so if you can do it on a basis where you can hang in there for about 6 months to a year, like I wouldn't go more than 8 months in terms of if you're putting something other than sweat equity or sweat into the project. If you're spending money, I wouldn't go more than 8 months, but you got to figure out a way, word of mouth wise, to build up to that, because I just don't see digital comics being viable as an indie right now. I think people are going to be much more willing to pick up a physical product from you, like maybe through crowdfunding than doing digital comics. Digital comics is something
I know that some of the guys at Iconic do webtoons and stuff like that, but that's really more for promotion.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
kind
not
of get awareness of the project that's going to be on Kickstarter and indie.
Yeah, or if you and even if you were, because we're looking at with anime concepts, if you're going to do the digital comic on some level, it's really meant to be something that is going to promote or get people to check out the actual print product. I mean, there's also doing like the webcomic stuff. I'm not, like kind of like how cartoons used to do back in the day when the cartoons would show up in the paper. But again, that's just a question of, I'm not familiar with those platforms, but if you want to hit me up at one of the on either Twitter or Facebook, I can talk to somebody and look into that for you. But that's the only way I see doing that. But it's been my study and my understanding that it's something you're going to have to at least put in a good anywhere from 6 months to a year time to build up an audience, and then figure out a way, probably through merchandising, to monetize it. But that's it. Yeah.
There's ways to do it on Facebook and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Admiral March here says they need to bring back newsstand. I remember grabbing my comic at grocery stores and gas stations before discovering shops. The newsstand's not coming back.
No,
and I don't think there's really a lot of newsstands anywhere outside of airports anymore.
Yeah. Spindle racks. I mean, that then you have what? Returnability?
I know Alterna was in some gas stations, I think, across the Midwest, and they stopped doing it. I imagine there was a reason for that.
That's about it.
I do think Comixology in its best form is the spinner rack.
Yeah.
It's that point of access and discoverability there. They just haven't figured out how to make it worth your time and money. It was always just too expensive. But I just don't see the newsstand coming back, because I don't think newsstands are just going away. It's kind of the way it is. Atomic Hound says, Who makes the move to day and date release on their subscription platform first? Marvel or DC, and when? Love the show. DC Comics, absolutely. They're the much closer one to it. Probably on their ultra tier service for theirs. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was this year. Anybody else have any ideas on that one?
I mean, I agree, but I would expect a huge hike in price. So
it's already too expensive. That's the crazy part.
I'm just saying, like, they're going to look at it as, okay, this is definitely going to lead to loss of sales of individual comics, you know. And if someone can get our whole line day of release,
is part of the subscription. Yeah.
It'll
definitely be DC as part of their ultra tier. They're the ones that are set up for it. But you know, he's probably right. There probably will be an increase, but like that's the end state, whether they want to fight it or not. They should have gotten together back a decade ago and made a competitor for Comixology with all their comics collectively on it. And they would have blown them out of the water, and they would have already been ahead of by this. And they would be competing with Shonen Jump rather than with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the problem with day and date that you assume then that, oh, I'm buying every single thing, and that would, you know, if you end up, people would say, well, that will be cheaper than, but nobody buys every single thing. You may have a pull list with 3 books on it. You have to have that, you know, that price point that equals out to that. It can't just be, you know, assume that everybody would buy everything anyway. So it's already too expensive for me personally. So yeah, I'm cheap though.
Daniel,
you got 5 kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Great point, making stories that people want to read. That's the key. You have to have a product that people are invested in, and they can't wait to get back for more. There just isn't enough of that right now. You know, you got The Flash, World's Finest. You know, was anybody frothing at the mouth this read to watch read Assault on Krypton? Despite Lazarus Planet being good, like everyone knew it was going to suck.
Jim called it. Jim called it his fears. It's to be an anthology series, and he was right. Yeah, all it took was.
I don't think there's a series at Marvel that I just go, oh my goodness, I cannot wait for the next issue. Even I like Moon Knight, but I don't like it that much.
Strange Academy. That's about it.
I like Strange Academy a lot.
It's weird. I love Strange Academy, but it's still, because of the delays and stuff with that. It's still a book that I'm like, well, when it comes out, I read it. I don't sit there and pine for it, and that is a problem with both. You know, the big two right now. I'll read what comes out. I'm just not sitting there begging for it to come out.
Yeah.
Lane Craver says, man tells me I am struggling for comics I want. Added Red Goblin, Hellcat, Rogue, and gave it to my sub. Help. What happened to Green Lantern? Hal's not in the solicits. We're getting a Hal Jordan Green Lantern from Mariko Tamaki, but it's going to come out, I believe, in the spring.
I think we would probably get the plane. We need an intervention. These are not good.
I wouldn't got those books myself. Rogue and Gambit, isn't that Stephanie Phillips?
Stephanie Phillips, yeah.
Hellcat's probably going to be Jed McKay.
It is. No, Hellcat's Christopher Cantwell, I believe.
Well, it's just as bad.
Yeah.
It's
just red flags.
Yeah, they are. They're real red flags.
You need help. What you need to do is listen to what we talk about when we talk about the indie comics, because that's where the majority of the good stuff is right now. Yeah. Get into a Blaze. They have some really cool stuff, even though it's reprints. It originally wasn't in English. Hopefully DC gets better. At least they got some stuff right now. But when you see the creators, it doesn't exactly inspire you to be really optimistic that it's getting better.
No.
Yeah. Nerdy Girl creates. Sorry, I couldn't help more, Lane. Carrie says, hi from work. Hopefully you guys are having a great weekend. Back Born of Blood 3. If Comixology fails, there's always Shonen Jump.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shonen Jump certainly works better, and it's a lot cheaper, and you get everything. Yeah, it's the Comixology thing is just, it sucks so bad.
Wow.
You can't even find anything on the stupid thing since they broke it last year. Like, you used to be able to just type in like a creator.
Yeah.
And the entire list of every comic they had available from that creator would show up.
It's funny because we're talking about all this, and Wes, what you're saying, that's when I bailed. I haven't even touched Comixology since then because half the stuff was hard to find. I couldn't get in, so I was just screw it.
Yep,
and,
same.
And that's the problem when you mess up like that. It's such a, there are jumping on points to things. There are a lot of jumping off points, and that was it for me.
The guy who founded CBR said basically across the board, digital revenue dropped by half when Comixology broke it.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. Like searching was hard, reading was more difficult. Like when you tried to zoom in,
even adding something that you wanted to your list.
Yeah, it was.
Yep.
I'm with Jim. Like I read physical copies. Then when we started reviewing, we started getting digital copies from DC as our review copies. That's when I transitioned because I actually preferred reading that way, especially with the guided view. I enjoyed the fact that I could go in panel by panel and not have, things ruined for me because I saw it, on the page, lower on the page or whatever. Or maybe, like in physical books, they fucked up the story with ads. So something that should have been a page turn was no longer a page turn. Like it got rid of all that. And it felt like you were actually flowing through a story. But even from a technical standpoint, the guided view helped me understand sequential storytelling through art better. So I started to recognize that. And then you have those artists that do like great layouts and nice splash pages. Like after that, I'd go back and just like see the full page to kind of take that in. But yeah, when we switched to comics or to Amazon, I pretty much dead stopped and went back to buying physical copies.
Yeah. Scribbler Jones talking to Gevian. What's your Twitter? Would love some more info.
Oh, Twitter is at Animated Con. So that's capital ANIMATED and then capital CON. Yeah, would love. Yeah, hit me up, direct message. I put some information in the chat. Wes did a video with my marketing consultant and good friend Marcel talking about comic books on Facebook, and Marcel has done. I'll see if I can connect you with him. He's done a really good job over the last 2 to 3 years building up an ecosystem as an indie to get digital comics out there. So he would probably be a great help to you on that. Yeah, he definitely has helped me out a lot.
Absolutely. Chuck Skills, great handle. Before I returned to buying physical copies, I had a good experience with Google Play or Google Books Comics Reader. Has anyone else bought and read digital comics via Google Play? I have not. I do have a comic reader, but it's not that one.
Yeah.
Does anyone else do? What's everyone's best experience? I think Shonen Jump is perfect because you can like zoom in. The thing that's different about manga, Jim, is basically every page is a panel in a comic book. You know what I mean? So comics are just a little bit different American comic books, so you definitely need to be able to zoom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's different. It is. But the Shonen Jump reader, I saw somebody saying that they didn't like the reader. It's bare bones. You don't need to get fancy. The only thing that used to drive me nuts at the beginning is because you're so used to going left to right that when you opened up a book, you'd swipe wrong and they'd yell at you. And I'd get all mad at it and take that. But after that, you're kind of going through. You just page to page. You can zoom if you need to. All that. I think that it is one of those things, though, that it's a simple thing because it doesn't need to be, but they're also kind of going with what that is. Like you said, there's only a couple panels a page, so you can kind of go with the flow and do that. So it's made for the exact medium. It's just the whole process and the whole thing going on. And like Josh said, me and him both were lucky to get, digital copies free from the companies. But that also was our way of jumping in to see that if you give it a shot, people who want that physical deal, you still can buy trades. I just think that they're missing out on the boat here to really expand, not just think of it as a, side hustle here. Here's our digital comics, or not worrying about the physical shops. It just expands things. It is a way to get more people reading, more people buying. And they always looked at digital as this thing that's going to ruin them, not something that could end up improving their business. It was always then it's going to be, problem with piracy. Oh, it's going to be it was so they'd always bring up problems, not the benefits. And I just think that was their attitude the whole time.
Yep.
Seamus McCallahan. Drew, you did not like the Wang Doodle Power Girl story.
No.
I'll ask Drew.
I'll say it wasn't the worst story in that book, but it was.
And Drew, you've read some Leah Williams stuff, right?
Yeah.
It might be one of her better stories. Yeah. That's the problem is it's all downhill from here. But
yes,
did you read it? You know what's going on. Did she really explain to you at all that the powers that she was getting was even from the Lazarus Storm?
No,
that's the biggest problem. People are losing their mind. She didn't tell a complete story and let people know what was really going on.
She forgot to set up the premise.
Yeah, and so you get it, but really, you have to wait until the regular deal comes out in Action Comics. Then we'll get the boob jokes that she always throws. I mean, I'm telling you, I guarantee you're getting those, and it'll get worse, but That was one.
Oh, she gets a new costume in Action Comics. I'll say that. She gets
yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. I'm sure that it still has the boob window, so you can mention boobs.
It's
right?
smaller. It's smaller.
That's good.
Just the window.
Carrie says, outside of getting better talent, do you think comics should rethink their physical format and create more compact books with more pages like manga to display in bookstores? I think they should make digest forms of trades available.
There it is. There's the costume.
Oh, lovely.
As another means of getting comic books to people. Go find the best Spider-Man, Batman stories they can, put them out in digest format, let them read the best stories and get back in there. But I don't think they should just change what everything's doing, because a large portion of the comic book market in North America right now are collectors, and that would just they would go insane.
Yeah. If you're trying to get people back into it, and this is what we found out over the last couple of months doing a pop-up shop thing, is that when you're getting like lapsed readers, they're looking for things that kind of like look like a comic book when they remember it. It's the same thing like when you add we go to these kind of markets, and you would have these grandparents and they want to get the comics for their kids because they remember the characters. They want things that look like a comic book. So that means almost basically when we're at those kind of venues, anything pretty much from about 95 forward, the people just don't recognize that as a comic. That whole, I won't even say like grim and gritty style, even that's a lot of it. People want something that looks like who aren't currently in the market right now. They want something that looks like a comic, and they want classic style. Like I get all these requests for Archie comics all the time, and all they're looking for is like that Dan DeCarlo stuff. That's what it is. That's what they know is Archie. That's what they want to see. If you give them enough of that, then maybe they might pick up the more like, Archie horror comics or things like that. But it's like, I would almost say, yeah, you want to do the physical format like what Wes is saying. You make a digest, but you do something like that you can pick up at a Target as you're walking out the door, like the old Archie things, and it's an impulse buy, and then let people get hooked and find out what else there is to discover. It's going to require an investment, and unfortunately, with Marvel and DC, they, as someone had mentioned earlier, these are not comic book publishing companies anymore. These are merchandising companies and licensing companies. That's where Marvel and DC are now. That's why you're not seeing this kind of investment being made.
Layden Craver says, "Is Tini Howard queer? Isn't she married to a guy?"
Hollywood queer. That's what she is.
How does that work, Josh?
Sounds like
it's where you have sympathize and or relate to queer people, so you think you might be gay, so you announce you're gay, and then like 6 months to a year later, you're like, oh no, I didn't say that. I was just I'm married to my guy over here. I'm good.
Yeah. 6 months after your husband wondering what the hell you've been saying.
Callum says they need people who are smart, literate, and aren't afraid to go outside, speak to people, and do research and read books.
Yep,
that would help. No doubt about it.
That's the problem. It's this weird deal. They need, DC and Marvel themselves need people who are writing that love comic books. But now we're in a period where comic books aren't as loved. So what's going to happen in the next round of things and stuff like that? But they have to get better overall with their marketing. And we're talking a little about that Action Comics. Everybody know here that there is a Young John story, something that people have been begging for a while. Dan Jurgens doing that. In that, Action Comics now they end
Jim,
up.
What does that matter
Power
though? Because we've seen John Kent growing up. Who cares?
Well, it's like watching old home movies. You get to see, but it's there.
It's
People
like when
have
they
been begging
reviewed
for
Macaulay Culkin to his younger cousin for Home Alone. It's like, who cares?
Those other Home Alones, not very good. But yeah, there you go. Drew's showing it, but that's in that book. Why aren't they telling people that? Why aren't they telling people that? Instead you preview a Power Girl with a new power that nobody knows saying Wang Doodle. What's going on? They don't even know how to market their own stuff, let alone, it's mind.
They don't understand their audience and what they're actually doing.
They don't.
No, they don't.
I was thinking the other day, man, watching those just are all of our fellow YouTubers who are pushing their indie comic books, and I honestly thought, why don't DC and Marvel push their own titles as aggressively as these smaller upstarts? I mean, wouldn't they?
Well, they don't own any of that stuff. Those are employees. Those upstarts, their skin is in the game.
They got marketing departments and stuff. So I'm like, damn. Like,
plus those people that create their channels know who their viewers are. Like I cater all my stuff to like a certain person.
Yeah.
Now it might only encompass 10% of the viewership on the channel, but I'm trying to talk to various people very specifically with my content because I know what the hell I'm doing because of my YouTube. Callum says, so TD's a faker and fraud. Typical. Callum. And they need people that don't talk about food.
Hey.
That would help too.
Oh, just pissed on the first half hour of the show.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, geez, it was like the Sopranos.
It's a
in here.
meatloaf story. My goodness. There's recently a story, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but CBR is doing a lot of these days where they're just talking about all the stuff that's wrong with comic books. They did a 10 worst things about Marvel, and it inspired Doc and I to have a video conversation about it. And I think we had a good time with that one. Now, Gevian, you're a long-time comic book reader. What do you think is the worst thing going on with Marvel these days?
Oh, well, right now we're working on getting our YouTube channel up. If all goes well, I get an audio engineer in February, but we're working on the series going to quote the Comics Wars books. And I would say that the worst thing about Marvel, and let me bring up the article real quick, but I think the worst thing about Marvel is the lesson they took away in the 90s, where basically they decided to go all in on the merchandising and licensing. And it basically, I think ever since then, the downward trend in terms of storytelling at Marvel has just been something they've never. It's been a nosedive they've never reversed from. Yeah, their main product. Thank you. Their main product is an afterthought, and I think it's caught up to them, and it's just caught up to them at the point where now at this point, it's like you said, until the corporation kind of gets out of it, until it kind of gets back to like a sort of a comic book publishing shop again. It is what it is, guys. But this was definitely the plan. This was definitely the plan. Number 4, sales are more important than quality. That's the one I would go with. Yep. And number 3 is not number 3 is right there. Mediocre talent getting high profile jobs, but that's when you don't care about what you're putting out there. When you're doing something that's so short term, like we just need a Captain Marvel book out there, or we just need the Scarlet Witch book out there, but we don't care what it looks like, that it has legs long after the fact, that it's like, then yeah, you make your short-term money up front, but you don't have something that's delivering returns over decades to where, like, let's say John Byrne's West Coast Avengers Vision Quest storyline, which was so popular and so well done, you ended up making a whole Disney Plus series about it 20, 30 years after the fact.
Absolutely. What do you think's the worst thing about Marvel there, Drew? You're having to read all these Marvel comic books, put them in your 10 worst of the month?
Looking through this list, there's
it's whatever you think. That's just meant to inspire a conversation, sir.
Honestly, I would say it's really keeping the substandard talent on and keep giving them work. Oh, despite
they're reliable, they meet deadlines.
Despite the fact they can meet the deadlines, okay, that's like showing up at your job. That's most of the job right there. Congratulations. But it's like, do something fucking creative. These are terrible, terrible stories. And it's a shame.
Howard's on her 3rd iteration of Captain Britain since she took it over 3 or 4 years ago, and they're still going on with it, even though it's never sold anything.
And it's underwhelming, but hey, she turns it on time. It's like, what the fuck? Lowered expectations. I love this shit. It's amazing. Congratulations, Marvel. Lowered expectations. It pisses me off beyond belief.
So I'm just going to jump in that real quick. Yeah. So I understand exactly what Drew was saying, and it's a fine balance, because I would have a lot of very talented artists always asking, because I used to work at Editorial Milestone, why is it that some guys who weren't that good got work over others? And it is a total truism. It is because I got to put a book out every 30 days. Mm-hmm. So
it is a periodical industry. It's based on
it is something that's it. So I mean, I would give people the McFarlane advice, because I think McFarlane was the best one to sum this up, which is first you get fast, then you get good. But at some point you got to get good. At some point you have to get good. But the speed thing and being able to meet the deadline, because unless what an editor can do or a company can do, and I don't think it would hurt them if you could get more talented artists and time was an issue, is just go to more of a 45-day or a bi-monthly release schedule. X-Men, which is one of the biggest books in the history, initially was a bi-monthly series. It was not a monthly series. So I've thought for years now that in order to get better talent on a lot, and especially the way the market is, some of these, I think Marvel and DC, they can go to a bi-monthly schedule with some of these books and still be good. So, you know, you got to be a little bit more creative in order to get that balance between quality and, you know, and delivery dates. So, yeah.
And that's how DC did a lot of those Black Label things. And a lot of people would tell you that the Black Label stuff was more quality stuff when that was going. And yeah, I think that it comes down to that newer writers just can't tell stories. Their storytelling is horrible.
They're just pitching Netflix shows. They're not trying to write comic books.
They're not comic book fans. They're not passionate about what they're reading. A lot of things are assigned, not pitched. And I also think that Marvel and DC to a point too, like they are in a battle against fans. They don't want to admit something's failed, so they'll keep going. They don't want to admit that maybe a writer they thought was great is bad, so they keep giving them work. And really, even in the stories themselves, it seems like they're just fighting with the fans when it's kind of obvious what most fans want. They typically think that what fans want are the negative things, yet stuff like World's Finest by Mark Waid is very popular because it's hopeful, and even the a little bit Nightwing, though we didn't like the 100 as much, but that has that tone. And stuff at Marvel like Peter David's stuff, it's just telling a good story. That's
they
all
never
you need to do right
either.
now, and they don't market it because but that isn't a headline grabbing deal. I wish it was. Maestro's the Bomb is a great that'd be an awesome headline. Yes. But it was. But yet they don't want to back that stuff. They want to back the stuff that, is like, we're going to make you like this no matter what, and we're going to force it down your throat. People end up, going against that.
So you've been going back to your comic book shop lately, Sully.
Yes,
but I've never seen you really show off any Marvel comics. What's keeping you? Well, obviously DC feels accessible to you, but Marvel doesn't right now. Why?
Correct. Well, okay. What's the worst thing about Marvel is me. I am a 50-year-old cis hetero white male with a disposable income, and the
starts right there. You're done.
How dare you?
I know, huh? I mean, I'm not. I don't want to make it every.
What's it going to take for us to get you on some dong? You know what I mean? Maybe you'll be a little bit more than Marvel.
Well, unblock everyone on Twitter. Like, you know what I mean? That you blocked on Twitter. How am I supposed to buy a Donny Cates book, or a Dan Slott book, or an Alyssa Wong book, or a Greg Pak book? I mean, just like, because I'm a.
So you think their creators are more combative to their customers?
I just think that's a turnoff. That's a non-starter. I'm not going to. I have to use this lens of who's blocked me on Twitter to try to enjoy a Marvel magazine, and on top of it, all the quality. Just in the price, it's just, I was just afraid that they're going to snap out of it. And then we're like, come back. It's time to come back. We've got the X Mansion and the Danger Room back. We're sorry. And
what are you doing with your fingers there?
I'm like, come on back. Come back. Come back.
Josh, what does that look like? Is he passing the helmet?
It looks like titty tingles or ball tingles. Hello.
Hey, dude. But I don't know what's gonna. I don't like spending my money with Marvel because of that. It's really messed with me being a customer. They want my money, but they don't want me. So how am I supposed to, want to
if
give them
they
my
can't
money?
accept you for having a different opinion than them, then you don't want them to accept your money.
I want to be able to buy the Kickstarters and the IGGs and Marvel and DC. They're the only ones who says to take a side. I mean, I find that obscene, and also, I can't get over that.
I'll tell you one thing that's worst thing about Marvel now before is that when I remember buying comics, I didn't care nor knew about the opinions of the creators. So I think that's one worst thing about Marvel. I didn't need to know all this about these guys. I just want to know, is the story good or not? So the fact that I know all of your personal, political, whatever it is, philosophies about life, it's like, sis, I could care less. The fact that I know as much about these creators as I do is obnoxious and obscene. And nobody cares. Can you write a story now? I love Frank. Frank Miller could have. Frank Miller would have only went down with me because what was that Holy whatever it was book was just ridiculous.
Holy Terror.
Holy
Terror
was
ridiculous. And All-Star. Yeah, Batman was just terrible. I could care less about how he feels about people who eat avocado toast. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. enough already with that.
Yeah, I
with
love
that stuff.
manga. I don't know anything about the
Yeah,
creators, so maybe that's
Marvel's
because
great.
I'm a
I don't even know
dummy,
what they
but
look like.
Exactly.
Because I know what all the Marvel and DC
Barely
creators
pronounce
look
their names, dude.
there
Let's
are
go
a
back
lot
to
of
that.
times I was reading a story and it took me 8 months to actually have somebody tell me that it was a female writer. Had no idea.
like. Did you?
And it
did
didn't
bother
matter.
you?
No,
Nope.
not at all.
You didn't drop the book?
No, I did
You
not.
didn't say, "Wow, she's so courageous for writing manga." I just a little
No.
slow clap for that writer.
No.
I didn't know
Like,
Dwayne
no?
McDuffie was black for like 10 years.
I
It was like, thought he was an Irish guy.
Sounds like
It's like,
didn't know. I didn't know.
never
Daryl
heard the
Haynes was
Black
black for
Irish?
the longest time.
I
I'm
didn't
like,
know
oh,
CB
awesome.
Cebulski was Japanese. I mean, there's a lot of things, right? I had no idea.
No clue.
Joe Duffy probably doesn't sound like a girl's name. Who cares? Good stories. That's all people really want. Yeah, Marvel's just in a weird place right now. Like, you wouldn't even consider buying a Marvel book, would you, Sully?
No, but I would if like I felt like they were offering me something like The Flash.
If
Or
Jeremy Adams was writing Spider-Man, would you buy it?
that would be cool. Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
You know, and
So there are
you know what I
exceptions.
picked. You know what I picked up this week because everyone's been, you're not picking this up. I picked up World Finest 11 this week. I effing loved it. I'm like, I've been missing out on this.
Mhm.
Wow, now,
That's not even the
Marvel-
best issue.
Well, but Marvel does not. I don't think they're trying, with the exception of like that Maestro, that Peter David magazine, or the Symbiote Spider-Man stuff they're doing.
Yeah,
They're
those are
not
cool.
making comic books for us.
no,
But they still
that-
want our
no.
money. They want us to like them on Twitter. But I mean, like, but they want my money, but they don't want me. I'm not gonna. I don't want to play like that. I don't want to take.
No.
I'm out.
I ended up getting late into Marvel. I'm a big DC fan, and I ended up getting late in Marvel, and I went in with a clean slate. Like, I wanted to love everything. And it was during the Fresh Start deal. I wanted to go in, give me
All
everything.
new, all different.
Yeah, no, that a little after that. The idea though was
Marvel U or Legacy?
the Fresh Start. They kind of called it at
Oh,
that
yeah.
point when they rebooted us. When you had Mark Waid on the Doctor Strange and stuff like that. And I went in like I want to love a Black Panther book, and that was terrible. And they were so
Shiny
bad,
Fields, right?
yeah, and they were so bad that they turned me off of the characters. I mean, it wasn't even like some of the things, and people will pish posh the New 52. But the New 52 had a thing where when I read it, even if I didn't like the series, it got me interested in the characters, where I went back and read other things and, expanded what I was reading. The stuff at Marvel, I go in and I'm like, okay, well, I don't like this. Oh, here's Iron Man. Let's see. Christopher Campbell. Oh, that sucked. And it just ends up turning me off. In general, I think, again, if we talk about Black Panther, that's what Marvel's doing. They turn you off of characters. It's not even just the idea of bad stories. It's turning you off because they seem to want to get the characters to punch you in the face and act weak. It's just bad.
So, Drew, you're in a comic shop. I'm starting to notice DC was really bad there for a moment. But their highs are really high. It's the Flash. It's World's Finest. It's the one shot from Lazarus played it. You're like, man, that is really good storytelling. And their lows are really, really low. I don't feel like Marvel really has many highs right now outside of like the Peter David stuff. I like Moon Knight, but it's not like the greatest thing ever. It's, maybe a little better than Nightwing.
Well, and I will be honest, with our store specifically, especially our brick and mortar store and our Whatnot channel, it's the variants. I mean, that is what's really selling it for Marvel right now. And they have a lot of hot cover artists doing variant covers, and those do sell incredibly well for us. I think more so than not, a lot of people are buying the books for those covers, and I can't blame them for that because, hey, some of them are absolutely great covers. But I really wish they would actually take the move to turn the page and really see what's going on inside the book. And
well, a lot of times they probably shouldn't. They're saving themselves being turned off to the entire publisher in a lot of cases.
That's true, very true. Yeah, but I at the same time, I really wish they would look at it and just really see, like, this is what you're buying here. All right, you need to know this.
Oh, you're talking about supporting the book.
Yes, yeah. Which is
it's a weird
from a
thing. I
retailer.
want people to support local comic shops, but I don't want them to end up paying for bad comic books.
Yeah, I don't want them either. It's like at the same time, it's like I see people buying like let's say there was a Shikari Miss Marvel cover and they wanted to buy it. It's like, okay, I can't blame you for that. I mean, granted, the story may be absolute dog shit, but I can't blame you for buying the cover. I would have bought it too. But the cover market is massive right now. And yeah, that's really pushing a lot of these Marvel books right now.
Yeah, there just isn't a whole lot of good stories. I'm pretty frustrated with Marvel. You would expect X-Men to be better. There should be a good book or two at X-Men. And then
Should be.
just
The
Avengers is somehow worse.
X-Men Legends is pretty much the one saving grace right now with the X-Men line. And I did like the Willis Portacio Bishop story that they did. The first issue was pretty good. And I'm hoping the next issue is just as good. But yeah, as far as the X line, it's garbage.
Avengers is worse because it's Jackson Lanzing and Colin Kelly on Captain America. Yep. It's John Ridley on Black Panther.
And Jerry Duggan on Iron Man.
On Iron Man. Well, Jerry Duggan now on Iron Man, and then Jason Aaron destroying multiple Avengers books all at the same time. It was like, you can't accidentally be this bad. Like,
I agree with that line right there. Yeah, it feels deliberate. I mean, how do you go from House of X to which? I mean, I always bring it up every time, but how do you go from House of X to where you are now with the X line? Because the thing is that's the funny thing about these businesses, especially these pop culture business. If you actually deliver the audience a great story and come in with the right feel and the right vibes, we easily forget. Because when House of X was out, nobody was complaining about the distribution. Nobody was complaining about the price. Nobody was complaining about this and that.
And they were all a buck more expensive than a normal comic at the time.
Exactly. It was just a damn.
And it's not like they weren't doing something different. That wasn't classic X-Men storytelling.
That wasn't. No,
he was pushing the envelope, but he was doing it well.
And he was doing it well, and it made you go and think, "Oh man, what did these guys come up with next?" And then what was so bad because I remember getting the previews and they were talking about the next offering of the X-Men stuff, and I was like, "Oh god!" It's like they were already back up to their old tricks, and I was just like, and that was planned. So,
and I think that Marvel has a problem too. Again, if I'm reading a book, and this is me personally, but if you get good character work and maybe great character work, that will sustain you through a couple bad stories, and because that's the foundation. You end up, going through it, and great character work really pushes the deal. That's something manga does really well, and they just don't get that. They don't get the idea that people, want these characters done well, and I don't even know what you said. They want to sell merchandise and stuff. But
there's
like
a lot of good. There's a lot of goodwill. Like you're exactly right. You're right, Joe. It's like if you deliver something that's very promising in the beginning, that premise in the beginning, people are going to jump on board and give it a shot. And it's like it's just unfortunate because like one of my big favorites right now, which is not it just ended, but it's not a Marvel or DC book, was Do a Powerbomb. That thing was fantastic. I love professional wrestling. I love and forgive me because his name is not jumping to my his name, the
Daniel Warren Johnson.
Thank you, Daniel Warren Johnson. I love his style, this kind of like modern day Eisner thing that's going on, and just the absurdity of the whole storyline, like something that came out of like Mad Magazine, but just was jacked up to 10. It's like those are things that people can really get behind and really support. Like Firepower was a book that I was behind.
I love that too.
Yeah, it fell off at a certain point, but it was just like, even though I don't like decompressed storytelling, the fact that Kirkman was giving away like pretty much a 96-page graphic novel for $10, it's like, bro, okay, I'll give that a shot and see what's going on, and I'll put up with your 3-page panel of the guy following a butterfly through the Himalayas.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But it's like, it's this really delicate dance and this balance of, hey, you know what, just help me out here. Give me something, and then I'll give you something. And I supported Firepower for at least the first year, not because I necessarily thought the story was going somewhere until it kind of picked up again with like issue 6 and 7. But just because, bro, if you're gonna come in with me with that much on the front end, I got you on the back end, and then after that, then we'll talk.
Then all bets are off. I agree.
Yeah, exactly. All bets are off.
When you hear people talk about Do a Powerbomb, I mean, the one thing that you get from that you don't get a lot from the big two is that you have people not just talking about the story, but talking about, oh my God, it's such the love of wrestling. You can tell that he loves this. And boy, you read that book and all you can sit there and think is, man, this guy loves doing this. He loves writing these characters. And then you love them because they're done in that way. They're done passionately. They're done well, and I don't get that from, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to have somebody who is writing a company character that you're like, oh my God, the passion's there. But that's why you have to really be careful and get people who have an idea and have like somebody who has been thinking of a Batman story for all their lives, not somebody who is assigned Batman and then shoves their stories in there just to fit the character. It doesn't work out. It's
Batman
not
Urban Legends, case in
point.
point.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what happens. Or I mean, some people will argue, but a lot of Tom King's Batman run was just Tom King as Batman. And I don't need that. And, you want to have somebody who loves the character, not somebody who's, oh, well, I have to write him. Okay, well, I'll do that, but I'm going to make my own story that doesn't really fit it. Something I was thinking. And pretty much all Tom King is what I'm saying. But, you don't feel the passion for the characters, the stories anymore.
Yeah. So we do have some chats from the viewers. Let's get to these super chats. Calvin says, no, not Eric. People like Vita, Tamaki, and others.
Okay. Which one I forgot? Sorry. No, not Eric. Like people
like lots of context. I think that must have been an hour ago. My bad, buddy. He also says, I don't trust Ewing or Eve Ewing on Black Panther. Remember, his mentor is a guy who thinks 9/11 was the best day of his life. That wasn't a joke. That's real. No, well, I mean, he doesn't inform all the reviews, I'm sure. She's shown promise as a comic book writer.
I'm one of the ones I don't like her that much. You like the Ironheart. I didn't love it.
She's not terrible. She's not bad. She's okay.
Yes.
I think that she has the same problem, not really great stories. I mean, she did the Champions book and ended up having that Outlaw, which was just Civil War for teen characters.
Yes.
It didn't really have much, originality. That's what I worry. And when she does end up praising Ta-Nehisi Coates, she's saying my mentor is somebody who had a failed comic run on the book that I'm doing and isn't even a comic writer. That's the weird thing. It's like me, getting into the NFL and saying my big thing is Martina Navratilova. It's not really going to transfer over to what I'm doing. You seem like a
Navratilova kind of guy.
I didn't mind Navratilova. I was more of a Boris Becker, John McEnroe fan, but that's fine.
The internet guy says, is there any breakdown of who reads U.S. comics nowadays? Seems like more are going to age out. It's only going to get worse. Part of why the manga is growing. There are some reports on the demographics. They're a few years old. They do everything that they can to show the demographics are changing. But if you go to the print media, it's still mostly older gentlemen, mostly.
Yeah.
But the reading demographic is changing, but also where they're reading and what they're reading is also changing. The people that are reading DC and Marvel are pretty much the people that were reading in DC and Marvel. They can't entice new fans, and they're finding other places to read new comics, unfortunately. That's the big problem. I actually have an enormous rant coming up tomorrow about that. I hope people enjoy that one. Talking about Heidi McDonald. Common sense, the worst things from Marvel, unnecessary mantle swaps such as Lin Lee, the Gary Stu as Iron Fist, plagiarism like Saladin Ahmed doing Storm Ranger as Venom ripoff, and he gave Miles a clone in Marvel voices.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of originality. There's no doubt about that, Jim.
Yeah, that's the problem. The originality, because oh my God, a Spider book, it has to have a clone saga. You have this all around. We even talked about it earlier with the one
like
that Dave Bane and stuff like that. Yeah, everything's like that, and that's why I like the Peter David stuff. This isn't a retelling of the stories; it's going back and expanding them, and that's where I think they should do. Instead, they're just trying to retell stuff that people liked or didn't like, and it's running into problems, because then people like I read the first time this happened and I either liked it or didn't, but I don't need it again. That's not going to validate a Miles Morales book just because you have a clone saga. You have to do your own thing.
Absolutely. There's way too much ripping off of it. Don't get me on Tom King ripping off True Grit. Supergirl. Kyle Lyle. John, I think, has a thing for torture.
The readers, and
he's also got torture quite apparent in
not just that, making the protagonists miserable assholes, just making them as unlikable as the villains. That seems to be his trope. There's no protagonist in his story.
Daniel Beatty, MCU Phase 1 through 3 was successful on the backs of stories 30 years ago. Phase 4 was set on more current stories and failed. How have they not learned that?
They had no choice.
They had one classic story that they could do, or the God Butcher, and they ruined it.
That's right. Yeah, the God Butcher's on them for that one, man. That wasn't hard. I don't know how they screwed that one up.
Oh, I know how they screwed it up. They
Well, I
hired
know.
Taika Waititi and let him go buck wild because the other Thor movie was successful.
Yeah, but it's homage to the Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Obviously, did not work. So that's like, oh my god, that scene with what was it? Sif alone, I think. Was it Sif? Oh, that was just crazy. That does
The worst
Black
scene,
Knight
obviously,
vibes.
is Russell Crowe as
Zeus.
Zeus, yeah.
Yeah, that was.
God, that was awful. He was literally in a tutu, dancing around, prancing around.
Yep.
God, but since wrong with Marvel canceling and launching the same heroes 24/7, not letting other Marvel heroes shine. Krakoa X-Men expected Sabretooth in the Exiles. Well, you got Sabretooth in the Exiles. That wasn't very good. But they are relaunching and canceling everything. It just happened with Black Panther. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But, you know, it used to be embarrassing what they were doing with Captain Marvel, where you're rebooting the title like 13 times in an 8-year period. But they're doing that with Captain America now. They're doing it with all their characters. And
I mean, they rebooted Squirrel Girl twice in 1 year back in the day. So yeah, they
that
don't
makes
mind
sense.
doing
It's
that.
Squirrel Girl.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't
They
have to
don't
do that
mind
with
though.
Cap.
Yeah.
Do not knock Ryan North. He is a genius.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
Galileo, I would do whatever I could to get rid of Miss Marvel Con, and she never returned. She's a lost cause and a jinx. And Birds, what was that? The character had potential, but they've ruined her. There's no way that
definitely ruined her.
will ever work now.
It's rarely ever the character's
Very
fault.
one note.
It's the writer's fault every time. I mean, I believe that.
Anytime a character has potential, they like shotgun it to limelight. You know, there's no actual progression.
Yeah, you see what happened with Punchline with DC Comics. That character's dead now too.
Back in the day, it would take
Or Naomi.
It would take like 10 years before a character with potential actually got like a spotlight. And it wasn't even a sustained spotlight. It was like, here's your story. Awesome. Okay, cool. We can do this a few more times.
Yeah. If he means the Birds in that recent Dark Web issues, that was a legacy character. That was something that was in the original run. The problem is that really didn't spell that out, so it came out to people who didn't know. Yeah, and it was just to try to. A lot of writers do this when they don't know the characters. They look up one thing. It's what the Clune Reds do. You throw a character from a past run. Doesn't mean you know it. They just do that as a shout out. Look at me. I know that this happened, and they don't know what to do with the characters.
Danny Beatty says, my last name is Beatty, first name Danny. I'm Black, Irish, and I'm from the Boston area. Sin City Bad.
Wicked Pissa.
Very nice.
Eric lit up.
I am from the South Boston projects, the old harbor projects there off of O'Colony Avenue.
By the harbor?
By the
Eric
harbor.
also sets up meetups for people that are in the comic book fandom on YouTube.
Well, we were talking about
see
local
movies
comic
and
book
stuff.
shops. I'm meeting up with the Gilk Man on Tuesday. We're going to Million Year Picnic. It is New England's oldest comic book shop. Opened in 1974. God bless them. They're still open. They're in Harvard Square, Cambridge, and it's a great place. And I'm just like really looking forward to bringing Thomas to the oldest LCS in New England for the first time.
I went to the oldest restaurant in New England and had their chowder. It was amazing.
It was Wicked Pissa?
Yeah.
Are these meetups MEAT? Is that the
No,
type of meetups we're
MEET.
talking?
You know,
If you're in the area, if you're going to be in Boston and you
I
want to
almost
meet
went
Eric,
to Boston. I was
let
already
us
booking my
know.
flight.
you're getting there anywhere. Huh?
where we got to meet up in Mystic, Connecticut to go see Cocaine Bear.
Nice.
Yeah.
Gallup says they need to stop this. Blacks only writing blacks, trans write trans, and so on. Do they believe in this hive mind?
Bigot.
The casting writers based on the physical traits and character or gender identity of the characters is weird. And you end up with, if they have the best story, then they have the best story.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it should be.
And Christopher Priest was pissed about that a few years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they tried to get him, and he did Deathstroke instead. They were trying to get him on Cyborg and stuff like that, and he said no.
Yeah, he was very upfront about that in interviews of saying like DC called and he said the first thing I said was I'm not writing a black character. Like before they pitched him anything, and then they confirmed, well, we were wanting you to write Cyborg, and he's like, I'm not writing a black character.
Yeah, right.
Like, well, he's half machine.
Then you lead with Cyborg. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he wrote the greatest Black Panther run ever because he's black. I think he got the character and was a good comic book storyteller is the thing.
Exactly.
He just happened to be black.
Be black. Yeah. It happens.
Yes. Wraith X7. Worst thing about Marvel is most of the stuff done over the past 22 years. They are telling what if in fan fiction stories in the main continuity. It's been a rough 22 years. This is obviously
Genie's a
been some
big
high
D&D
notes.
fan, so there's a lot of D&D stuff going on in X-Men. So yeah.
But the Bendis stuff at Marvel to begin with was good. Like, there's definitely some highs in there. They opened up some doors. The Rick Remender Uncanny X-Force run, I'll say, is one of the better X-Men runs you're ever going to read. Or X-Men related runs. So I mean, there's some stuff in there, but I would say the last 10 years at Marvel has been really, really bad. They just haven't found like that new generation of writers, unfortunately. Grateful Dog.
Bad.
ASM is a ripoff. 23 issues for a payoff on the creator plot point. Also, it ruins any suspense Fantastic Four had. Silver Sable versus Huntress. Hit the like button. Absolutely hit the like button. And man, ASM, like you introduce the big plot point and you just forget about it for a year. Weird.
It's rough. It's a weird thing at Marvel right now. It's always these books. Even Fantastic Four has that with, as he says, something happened. But Hulk even had it when Donny Cates started that Hulk run of, oh my God, Bruce did something. Nobody likes that. You just tell a story. Don't sit there and drag it along.
J.J. Abrams mystery box storytelling.
Yeah, it is. And
I've been telling everyone, read the Spider-Man Spider-Man Lost Hunt with Kraven by J.M. DeMatteis. It is fantastic. This last issue.
That's what you need to read, Lane. Get rid of that crap you had and get Spider-Man Lost Hunt. You'll be happier. Absolutely. Miss Maria, Marvel don't pay their staff on time. Sounds like a lot of publishers are not paying their staff on time. But that's been a problem for a while, right, Gevian? I mean, you were in the industry.
No, I always got paid on time, but sometimes it's either you get paid on time or you just don't get paid. No, well, yeah, it's my first my one and only professional writing gig. I never got paid. I didn't get comps. I had to go buy the copies of the store myself. Lesson learned. But yeah, no, I think going to, like, we're talking about starting off with characters where it's always the main characters doing something wrong. I mean, this is something that, from I understand, talking to some creators goes even back to like the 60s. When Kirby saw that they were doing those Marvel superhero cartoons and he realized he wasn't getting none of it. And then the generation came by him, they started realizing, wait a minute, I'm creating all this new stuff for this company and I'm not getting all of the economic benefits of it. And so what you're seeing now is a culmination of decades and decades of people just realizing, well, why should I create new villains and new characters for a company that I'm not going to get the full economic potential of? So what you end up having is, and that along with maybe a lot of these guys are Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans, so that might have played an influence because Buffy was known for this as well. When basically somebody in the Scooby gang has to end up being a big bad for a season as opposed to just being a whole new big bad. But the fact that there's no economic incentive to create something new, I think is something the publishers have to start reckoning with if they want to see a lot of these creators, because I think it's rightfully so for the creators to kind of hold back a bit and say, look, I'll use your company to get enough exposure, then I'll just go over the image and do something for real.
That's exactly what happened. They used the big two as a brand, elevating, thing and then leave. Like James Tynion. I mean, that's what he did, Yeah, it does. That's how you get paid.
Galb says it wouldn't surprise me if they make a mutant who could make men pregnant.
Don't give them ideas.
Please don't.
I'm surprised they haven't done it already.
Isn't that the brew?
No.
It's happening. Happening in Deadpool.
Giving Marvel their bad ideas. Rate that 7. Most of the things that have made Marvel comics and the characters likable and fun has been done away with. Yeah. There's definitely the good guys, the bad guys, bad guys, the good guys. Stuff doesn't make it anymore. You can't even enjoy a character like Arcade anymore. Arcade just undeniably bad, super duper fun.
Yeah, there's fun to that, right? To have a over the top villain, and it's the idea when you have these people deconstructing
amusement park of murder.
Yeah, exactly. I hate that the play of I want to make these characters realistic or like people where they're just the heroes are, flaws are one thing, but having them unlikable, that should not be allowed.
Blame Alan Moore.
Yeah.
Or even
Blade
a related.
Says he's buying Red Goblin since the symbiote. I'm assuming that he's talking about the big event that's coming, Summer of Symbiotes. Hellcat to read the character wanted to write. And Rogan Gambit to see the car accident of the relationship and why he's buying. They're definitely not going to be together by the end of that one. It seems like they've been teasing that, but
The tag for that Hellcat comic, I just read through and saw that house ad. That should have been the comic that absolutely nobody wanted. The man didn't even thought about. Oh my God, Hellcat! And I'm a Defenders fan, and I'm like, no, come on.
Well,
no.
What are you talking about? Give us the details.
The Hellcat? Who cares about Hellcat?
Okay. No one cares about.
Wasn't there a Hellcat? Basically,
she just sat there and bust Tony Stark's balls for like 2.5
she
years.
She had a title like 10 years ago, right?
Did she? Yeah,
but it was like
Hellcat, right?
But that's what they were trying to break in the YA, and it didn't work.
Kate Leth made her a lesbian. Downfall of Hellcat. Wraithx 7. Worst thing about Marvel changing the comics to resemble the MCU, doing away with secret IDs, and the Marvel Universe is no longer the world outside your window.
It's some window. I don't know whose window.
They've definitely tried to make a little bit of synergy between the Marvel Universe and Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
I think Marvel comics are probably doing more damage to the Cinematic Universe now that they're trying to cover their stories, to be honest.
Yep.
Frank Zanka is going to move us on to the next topic. Saw your review of Nightwing 100, and I thought the same thing. Sad that Taylor's soapbox using a milestone issue. Also, I wanted to ask Drew if he received my text.
Text? Oh.
Sounds like Drew has not received your text, and if he did, he was unaware of it. But getting into Nightwing 100 is supposed to be a milestone issue. There was momentum. It was a slow build, but there was momentum to Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon either getting engaged or having the shotgun wedding. They've been teasing that for a while. And there was certainly the momentum that they've been building up with Heartless for 2 years now, that he's been ripping the hearts out of innocent people and murdering them. But Dick Grayson never really confronts him, and it still doesn't happen, Drew. How the hell can they do this with the milestone issue? They charge $7. There's a prison break. It's just a regular issue with a bunch of crap stuffed on either side of it about how prisons are bad too.
I remember reading it initially the week before when it came out, and I was just typically, Kyle and I don't talk about our reviews beforehand, but there are those rare occasions when something is just so mind-numbingly stupid. You just want to reassure yourself, like, hey, did you read this too? Is this as pointless and as dumb as I thought it was? And it's like, yeah, it served no purpose other than to show off some legacy artists, which is great. That's fine. Scott McDaniel, cool. But the story that they were telling, okay, no prisons. That's a choice.
Nightwing puts a lot of people in prison. It doesn't really make sense for that character.
Now, it doesnn't fight Heartless. And a moment where that could have been badass to fight KGBs after we want to forget that he got shot in the head. It's like he ends up getting saved by the Titans. Titans fight for him, if that. And this is not what I wanted at all. I don't think. Look,
you didn't want Superman and Wonder Woman verbally filleting Dick Grayson on how great a guy he was?
Again, which we already got in Dark Crisis. It's like, okay, we got this about a month ago in Dark Crisis #7. Thank you. Let's move on. And
Bruce Wayne breaking down in man tears over how great Dick Grayson is.
It's like, okay,
hey, I like that part.
It's nothing. I just think it went a little too far.
But there's nothing new here in this book, really. Nothing to really like or to cling on to.
The art.
PR, yeah, probably just the PR. That's all it's for.
The art.
Okay,
like.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the people who love this, I really want to know if you're in the chat right now and you love this like as much as some of the page shill reviewers have online,
9, 10 out of 10.
Tell me why you love this damn comic. This comic is a pile of shit. Please tell me why you love this pile of shit.
Far. It's pretty average though, and for $7,
it's below average.
More than average.
No, it is below average. No.
If they did that Prison Break episode in issue like 992,
they did a prison break and don't even call back to it. You have prisoners running loose in the streets. No one says any word after that. It's like, okay,
well, because he bought the prison and set them free. They never captured him.
Even in our video in the chat, somebody was ending up arguing with me or yelling at me that of course Bloodhaven has more than one prison. And I said, well, then show us something. Tell us. You can't do. I hate this, let's fill in the blank story in this. Like Drew said, There right now in Bloodhaven are murderers, rapists, just running free, just running around. I mean,
Nightwing's doing a press conference.
Well, next thing what's going to happen is these people won't be able to find apartments. They'll be homeless, and suddenly you'll get a Haven 2 made by Nightwing for all the rapists and the murderers. He'll end up giving them food trucks and things like that. It's nonsense.
But it's just setting up the next great story arc, Nightwing White Flight. I mean, that's all it's doing.
Yeah.
But isn't Command D underneath Bloodhaven though?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yep.
Oh, just think.
That's it. They're going to turn
they
into
can go hang out with the
Morlocks.
lizard people.
They'll just go down there, mole men. But everything with Tom Taylor in this issue and the whole run is the idea of, I'm going to throw this out as a big wow moment, a fan service deal, but never get back to it or resolve it. I mean, at one point, there is legitimately a part in the story where Brutal, the villain, ends up a big wow moment, giving the finger to Blockbuster as that's the villain being let loose. I mean, that's another thing. Like, it's funny. Hey, he gave the finger, but Nightwing's just standing there. That was a guy who was being a villain, and he's just let go. Nothing ever resolved. Nothing ever gets resolved in that book.
No.
Are you surprised, Josh? I know Nightwing's a big character for you. Is he your favorite character?
Yeah, I would say Nightwing's probably one of my favorite characters. I'm not surprised because I feel like we saw this early on. Like, Tom Taylor showed his hand with this title early on. If you'll remember, the second issue of this book, it was this whole like, what? Homeless people exist? Mm-hmm. And then like 3 issues later, they're like, money's bad. We should give all of our money away so there's not homeless people. And it's like, yeah, that's not the best way to go about that.
Nightwing throws money at every problem.
Oh my God!
Yeah, he's like Tom Taylor wants to rail against it, right?
Yeah,
that's like what he's.
Money's bad. But yeah, I mean, between that and the fact that he would start a story and never like completely ended it, you might get like a thread that would end, usually unsatisfactory. But he's kind of had moments that are decent moments that kind of keep people alive and I think make people hope. But I'm just kind of like. I don't have hope that the story's ever going to tell a solid, good, conclusive story.
And Tom Taylor is looked at as this big writer. He's exclusive at DC, but his series don't necessarily last very long. I mean, you ended up having that Suicide Squad run, which is really the same thing happened. He just never got around to really telling you about the characters or the actual story. It kind of meandered, and then it was canceled, and he said, like he did with John, that it was always planned that way. It wasn't canceled. We're doing this and that. It's just, most of the stuff he does gets canceled pretty early.
Yeah.
I'm tired of being told through characters in the DC universe how great Dick Grayson is. I prefer the Chuck Dixon method of showing Dick Grayson in a situation that we would have seen a Batman or a Superman or another character in, and then him doing it his way and appreciating that, yes, he is great. And that's why I like Dick Grayson.
Yeah,
it's the show don't tell.
Yep, and it's not just in Nightwing. Like, every comic writer needs to learn how to do this. Instead of monologuing about how wonderful and terrific someone is,
or lessening one character to elevate the other. That's another trope that they do a lot. And just with this Nightwing, and Drew was talking about it, there are 9 10 out of 10s. And Drew, Josh, I mean, we've done a lot of reviews, written reviews, video reviews, and stuff like that. And we all know what you just say milestone, and you're going to get people just out of the woodwork and give it 10s out of 10s just for that.
A 10
That's
out of 10
ridiculous.
Is a perfect comic book where the story is completely concise. It pays off everything, and the art is spectacular.
Yep. Yeah. I'll admit, I gave Tom Taylor's first book, first issue of Nightwing a 10 out of 10. I was going to give it a 9.9, but I gave it because of all the shit that we had gotten from that. And it did look like, okay, there's a creator who loves the character. He's going to accept, but it never changed from there. So, but people seem to also get stuck in these ruts. They're throwing this Nightwing book as the pinnacle of books. Well, they can't back off from that, because then that means that they're negative and stuff like that. It's just odd. Plus, these people, a guy who gave it a 10 out of 10 was arguing with me because I was bringing up points, and he agreed with the points, but still ended up saying, but it's a milestone. The thing is, it's not a milestone for Tom Taylor. He's been on 23 issues. He didn't write 100 issues of this book. You also have it when a book gets canceled because it sucks, but yet the last issue of the run, everybody comes out to give him 10 out of 10s to give him, thank you. It's just ridiculous. Just even that Batgirls. These don't look at written reviews, except from people that you can trust, because people will give review scores for weird reasons. Silent issue, 10 out of 10. It doesn't matter what's in it. It's just these things. It drives me
nuts. A bold move with that silent issue. You got to applaud that.
Yes,
it's good.
I was looking at the reviews for Nightwing, and there's like 3 assholes at the bottom of the scoreboard. Some Jim Werner from Weird Science, some Gabe Hernandez from Weird Science, and Michael Escalante from Batman News. God, what assholes!
I know, what jerks.
Giving average scores to a book. How dare you?
Yeah.
7 out of 10 is above average.
Okay, come on.
I don't know what the hell Jim was thinking.
Listen, that's below my average. My average is actually, I think, now a 7.2 overall with like 3,200 reviews. That's not bad, right? So it's below average. Some of these people where it's funny, they give a 9 and you're like, holy crap, that's 5 below your average. Like there's people now with over 400 reviews with an average of 9.7.
Yeah, I found somebody that had
crazy.
2,300 reviews in their average.
That's because they've been watching too much Dancing with the Stars. But anyway,
it's crazy.
Well, it's because they're not there to really review the comic book as what it is. They're there to be a part of the industry, so that maybe they can get into it.
Again, I think Drew and Josh have run into people who just say they're not there to, they're there to celebrate things. Really, I thought you were here to review it. Yeah. It's just, the state of that is ridiculous. And going to that Hellcat deal, Gervain said, when you read the press release, the first thing it says, writer of the acclaimed Iron Man run. And the thing is, nobody likes that run. But if you look on Comic Book Roundup, the 3 people reviewed it every month gave it 10s. So it is acclaimed in that way, but that means nothing.
So everybody forgot about that whole Knight's Tale scandal, huh? What are you guys going to return for these wonderful scores?
Greg has another point to make, I guess, going on to Tom Taylor's soapbox. The charity Danny Glover is involved in is being sued for paying bail. The criminal immediately put a clerk into the ICU during a robbery.
Yeah, I heard about that, California. Yeah, not just him. Danny Glover and a few other actors are involved in this charity, like paying bail for activists. Yeah,
It's crazy. They didn't ever offer bail to all those people they imprisoned in Australia just for not wanting to get a vaccine. But
they just let them out in the desert and they fight off kangaroos and everything. That's their prison.
Fighting kangaroos is more dangerous than you can imagine, sir. You ever seen a pissed off kangaroo?
No, I have
My
not.
buddy did. He saw one that he was walking out of his house and it was in his driveway.
Did that boxing gloves on? Because that'd be cool.
No. Apparently they're like hair. He explained it to me. It sounded like it wasn't very much fun. But this whole we need to unveil whatever, man. Bandito Bane. Man, that's pretty good. I like it. It hurts that Marvel is doing so bad with all the fanfic writers and real world issues they insist to put in. It sucks because they decided to blacklist the best writers because of stupid things.
Yeah, I mean, these are the children of Devin Grayson and grandchildren of Devin Grayson. People who saw a clip of a Batman TV series and say, I can do that. And this is a legacy writ large. It's like, no, not everybody can do this. You barely understand it coming in, and then you don't know anything about the characters. Admittedly, I mean, it was that guy who was doing that Star Wars series on Disney Plus, where he was it I think it was the Obi-Wan one. He just flat out said, "Yeah, I didn't really know anything about this, and I just figured I'd do my own thing." And it's just like, all right. Yeah, it's like, all right, bro. Yeah, maybe you and whoever hired you should have rethought this before they gave you the job, but. It is what it is. It ain't my money.
Obi-Wan was a backup character in his own TV show. The only reason people watched it was for Obi-Wan. And he was like the side character. Oh, my goodness.
Basically.
They need to embrace the people that have worked that still want to work. There are a lot of good writers that they won't even consider hiring nowadays because, T.D. Howard's got to have 5 books. My goodness. Chuck Skills says, I don't think the art in Nightwing was good either. There was good art in there, but there were some transitions that were very jarring. Then there was like a 5-page sequence, which was just a bunch of covers that they threw in the middle of it to act like it was part of the story. Jim liked the art better than me.
But it's a milestone.
My dog's going crazy, but yes, I like the art.
Jim's milking out.
He's going, I told you.
This dog is having problems now. But yes, I did like the art as a whole. But that's been one of the things that I've liked on this Nightwing run in particular. Here's the dog, and the dog agrees. It actually is saying
It's not 10 out of 10 art, though.
No, it's not.
It from being a 10.
It's definitely not 10 out of 10. I'm muting the dog. I'll get her
Let me on the damn mic. I'll tell you.
Dylan says, hello, all. You can literally look at New York City to see the damage bail reform. A writer can get on a soapbox, but he can't do it at the expense of the characters he's writing.
Amen.
Absolutely. This isn't a Green Arrow comic book where that would make sense.
Or you don't even have Hawkman to balance that and be like, listen, Dick, some of these kids are criminals.
But the
Why would he have to explain that to Dick Grayson is the point? He's the one putting them in prison.
and
he was a cop. He was a cop.
Yeah, he was. And Wes, you said something earlier that makes sense, that this was something that you had gradually been dealing with throughout the whole run, and this was your big thing. But he's scattered with his stuff. He'll rail on one thing, then and then when it is dropped, it makes it even worse.
So this was Daredevil.
This was a milestone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. You got Reform Island going on there, but yeah, you end up with this Nightwing where you're going into it, and yeah, usually these milestones are just celebrations of characters, but that's all his run has been. But when you go into it, you're not expecting out of the blue just right away of prison's bad, bail too high, and it just threw everything off. It really, to me, threw the whole issue off. Then you're waiting for a payoff that never came, and then you're like, what the hell was this? It just, but yet people will go on and you look at the reviews and they don't get into specifics. It's just the same thing they keep saying. Oh man, it's the catchphrases. Oh, he loves the character. Oh, this and that. It's just you needed something for a milestone to really oomph this run, and getting rid of Heartless, that would have been the thing, and an engagement maybe, but I don't get it.
Prison, which you can't do because the prison's gone, and let him escape if you still want him to be there. He needs to win at some point.
Yeah, exactly. And this prison reform, I mean, it's so surface level that I'm a guy, I don't know crap about this. I even laughed. I'm like, really? This is what you think is going to solve the problem? Maybe he's just mad because he wants more villains, right?
There's other prisons in Bloodhaven. I was like,
again, I said, I don't know. I've never been there.
Prison is, it's not a jail. There's a difference.
Yeah.
A jail is something local. A prison is enormous. Exactly. It houses thousands of inmates.
And this is the problem. When you end up having this whole deal and you take away a prison, this opens up more things like, oh, then we have overcrowded prisons. But you're not going to be able to get into that. It's a comic book. So you end up just, I'll throw it out there and we'll get out of here. But I'm telling you, that whole press conference he's having for right behind him, I swear there's just debacle going on.
Is Dick Grayson a press conference kind of guy? I never felt like he wanted this spotlight.
And this is about his 7th time.
How many press conferences
I know.
Are you going to do?
Well, remember at one point he was told, listen, somebody's trying to kill you. So how he ends up combating that is getting a bunch of kids to stand around him during a groundbreaking ceremony.
Saddam Hussein technique.
Right? Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, that is pure evil. It really is. And and then it's pushed aside of, oh, well, Wally West pretty fast. He'll say, no, you had a press conference when you were told people were going to kill you with kids around you. And plus the kids are around you because this villain had killed all their parents.
I think he's celebrating Tom Taylor, not Nightwing. That's another thing.
I don't know what. I just think that he's trying to go too far in the I love the character and he can't do anything wrong, and it's not playing out well.
Gobinson says solicits for both Marvel and DC. I'm actually going to do them this month. I've heard you guys. You're mad I haven't done solicitations. I will get back to them. He says Marvel's got 2 Guardians of the Galaxy books. Bane of Blastar might be between of Al Ewing's new #1. Explain how Mantis is now a cyborg. I don't know.
Yeah, one of those Guardians books coming out is Lansing and Kelly, because everybody's loving the Captain America run. There you go.
Sales state otherwise, sir.
Yeah,
but I will do the solicitations again, and we'll get back all that. I was hoping people would forget about it, but they never did. Unfortunately. Apple Pit says comics are being destroyed purposely because they hate us. I think they hate the comics. I think they hate what the characters stand for. Yep. And if they can't change the characters and make people accept them, they will just destroy them forever.
There's always been people who hated superheroes. The whole genre, the idea of it, and somehow they, as Joe Scarborough said about another event, they opened the effing doors for him. So anyway, I mean, it's just it is what it is. It's like they took over. They're winning, and until something happens, they've clearly made it. They've made it clear they do not like the fan base for this particular product. So can't get around that one.
Graceful Dog says, hopefully Jed McKay's Moon Knight quality isn't affected by his strange Avengers run. Thoughts on Whatnot entering comics publishing? Riddick versus Judge Dredd. I think McKay's quality has already been affected. Moon Knight has been going downhill for the last
I don't think
few
it's
months.
going anywhere. It's a meandering story. It needs to get some progression here. But again, this is a book that people have put on a pedestal and they don't want to take it up. And I'm not saying about Grateful Dog.
It's been going downhill, but it's still the best ongoing right now.
It's solid.
Thoughts on Whatnot entering comics publishing? I'm not
They
surprised.
suck. Most of their comics are publishing suck right now. That's all I got to say.
But I'm not surprised. They're in the sphere of doing something like that. Riddick versus Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd. I'm assuming that's Riddick, like Vin Diesel Riddick, right?
Yeah,
that's what I'm assuming.
I like Riddick, but yeah, that's Dredd. Especially if it's the Carl Urban Dredd. Carl Urban Dredd.
That was such a good movie. Is that the best comic book movie adaptation ever? It's right up there.
It's close. I'm still number one for Turtles, but yeah, Dredd is pretty much up there.
The lady from Game of Thrones who played the bad lady.
Yeah, the Mama. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She was pretty frightening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cut a dude's dong off with a razor blade in her mouth or something. Smiling about it. That's freaky out. All right, let's talk. Well, we talked about Nightwing 100. Let's move on to our last thing. We'll talk about Black Panther is being canceled in Rebooted yet again. We've got e-viewing coming on board. John Ridley's run ends up only lasting for 15 issues. Not very good. Black Panther should be a big deal in comics, especially with Marvel Comics Gevian. But they're having to reboot the series again. Why does this keep happening?
Somebody wisely said in the chat to begin with, it's just like it works. Apparently it works. It's like starting, and Drew maybe can speak more to this. It's this thing with number ones and variants. We have much more, I guess, a collector's market.
There's a Jumping at Windmills from Brian Hibbs out right now where he talks about this specifically, where he says, yes, you do get a bump for the first 2 or 3 issues, but after that, it returns to the same level. Sometimes, if you're lucky, but normally it goes under where it was before anyway.
Because comic sales are always in a state of entropy. That's what it is. It's like and so what happens is that instead of
Spawn was down to like 12,000 a month, and it's over 35,000 now.
No, I know, but that's because McFarlane did some other things that were smart to rejuvenate his line. Because that's also the theory in that is that you can get a bump again by basically telling a good story, maybe dropping the price, getting a good artist on the book. Those things will get your sales back up again, but it's still going to drop off again because you're trying to find that baseline for the audience where it's like, okay, we got 15,000 people who are basically ride and die with this character. But that's what's happened with this Black Panther thing. I think it's almost rote now.
America,
they just do it.
Before Ta-Nehisi Coates took over Captain America was 40,000.
Yep.
That was like 3 or 4 issues in a row. That was basically the rock bottom. It was the Remender issue. I think there was a Mark Waid one in there. There was like a bunch of them in there. Then when Coates took over, yes, it got a bump. By the 3rd issue, it was already below 40,000. It never got back up to where it was before under the previous 3 writers, and now it never gets there again.
Yeah, but they're gonna keep doing that because because I got it from Hibbs, and I actually way back in the day called Hibbs and asked him about this personally and did a lot of research on it. The rule of thumb is that, so first of all, you got to drop issue number 1 and you got to use it as a baseline. But you know that with issue number 1, it's roughly gonna number 2 because of the way the ordering system works. And Drew, you can help me out with this here. I think I have the right number. At least a 40% drop off. You would try to anticipate between 1 and 2, and then for 2 and 3, it's like maybe another 20%. And then from about from issues 4 to 6, you're going down by 5% a piece. And then it's that 6th issue, that 6 to 7 issue. That's what your number is. And from 7 forward, you always assume you're dropping by 1% until you hit something. then it's a question of whether you get it back up or not. So that's why you see these guys. I assume when Eternals comes out, you do 50 variant covers because you want to get the collectors to come in and artificially inflate your numbers. So basically, you trick the rest of the market into thinking, oh, well, you're doing 100,000 copies, so therefore I got to at least put in 60,000 copies for the next thing, and then it isn't until like about maybe the 6th or 7th issue you realize now you only moving 10,000. So then that was from the beginning. That's and then with this here, I just think they're just rebooting it. Because now I don't know if this is in time for when Wakanda Forever comes out, but I feel like that's what it is. But it's like there's no reason. When we did the last thing with Secret Identity for the pop-up shop, and I'm talking about not even good Black Panther comics. Sometimes I feel guilty, but I don't feel guilty. We got cleaned out because Black Panther is apparently the hot thing right now. But the fact that there's no solid ongoing comic, it's like with this Eve Ewing coming on, it should just be, this is issue 16. Welcome new writer Eve Ewing, and just keep it moving. That's it. But this whole thing of like number ones, this is unfortunate. Look, I love the 90s for all of the promise of the pain. The promise of the pain of the 90s, but it's like there are some tropes, there are some marketing sales tropes in the 90s that have never left us. And the fact that just because you bring a new creator on, that means you have to do a new number one. I can't even keep track of my collection. I literally look at some of my books in my collection. I do not know which one came first. I just don't. And I'm not going to pull it out the box and look at the indicia, to figure out what year it was. They have this is the part of the industry I don't like. There's no disrespect to you. I don't like the new number ones all the time, and I don't like variants because I think what it does is that it makes and because the industry is so much in the direct market now, it is pretty much the local comic shops. It's like this is how I have to interact with this industry if all I want is the one book with that one story with the one cover. For about when I started getting back to comics again after I had done a fast from comics because of some church stuff, when I came back in for at least the first 3 months, I ended up buying 3 copies of the same comic. For at least 3 months because I didn't realize that there were variant covers like that, and it's just like I was pissed for a year.
Pissed.
Yeah, it's just like, so I don't know why Marvel does it to get that what we call in wrestling a cheap pop, but it's like, bro, there's also the law of diminishing returns with this. It's like enough already, and then that's my 2 bits on that. But
my play on this is I wish that it was actually rebooted. A lot of times this just means new number one with a new creator that's just going to keep telling the nonsense story. This Black Panther stuff has been garbage. And when you end up when John Ridley comes on and really doesn't change anything up from the Ta-Nehisi Coates, he's kind of, I know, referencing and whatnot, but it still had that same kind of feel. And now we're going to get Eve Ewing, who's praising Ta-Nehisi Coates. I don't feel that that's the reboot that I actually really need. I want to just get a cool thing. And they're talking, and Yule was talking in the deal. Black Panther doesn't really sell. Well, if that's the case, then just tell a good story, for crying out loud. Tell something that's fun. Tell something that will get people inspired to like the characters.
It doesn't have to sell like Spider-Man, but it also doesn't have to drop out.
You know how much it's going. Yeah, you know how much it's going to sell. Let's try to hit those numbers, and it just keeps dropping and dropping because it's not interesting. I think the Ta-Nehisi Coates and the John Ridley things, the worst thing that it was boring as hell. You end up reading those and you're just bored. And that should be, especially at a time when the property was hot. You get people on board and they're like, really? We're in space? What the hell is this?
Yeah, that was crazy.
It was so weird. And that's when everything, Black Panther was real hot. With that,
really hot.
You didn't even have anything that even resembled anything that people would have wanted to see in that.
And the space Wakandans came to fight the Earth Wakandans.
We have to be careful about confusing MCU popularity with Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
Because somebody once said, when they announced the Iron Man movie, I was like, Iron Man? Iron Man. And I don't know if this was deliberate or it just happened, but what actually happened with Iron Man MCU was they actually ended up making him the Peter Parker of the MCU. And I think that's what a lot of people miss about Tony Stark. They actually gave with great power comes great responsibility, energy to that Tony Stark character in the MCU. That whole thing is like, well, I spent the whole time arming the world and making it a dangerous place. Now I got to do something about it. But if anybody is sitting up here saying like Iron Man was like, anything but a C-list character outside of Avengers, you're out of your mind if that was the case. That same case could be made for Thor, and even at times Captain America. These were not like the huge title sellers that we would think.
Blade made them a ton of money, and they announced 3 characters: Iron Man, was it Moon Knight? There's another third
something like that. Shang-Chi.
It was the characters that they had left, and they got Robert Downey Jr. on that one, although I guess he wasn't a big deal. And they actually got it to theaters. That's the one that got produced first.
Yeah, the trailer made sense. When I saw the trailer, I was like, "Oh yeah, they nailed it." But then that means this was just happy This was like a happy coincidence. It was because like when you're right with Blade,
better be looking good.
Yeah, it was like, well, I love the first 2 Blade movies, but the thing was that you better. Second's better. But you realize that Blade in the New Line movies is not the Blade from the comic books. You knew that going into it. So with this one, where the MCU characters are a little bit more aligned with the actual comic book things, I just think that we've forgotten that these characters that are doing well in pop culture, because that's what it is. They're doing well in pop culture. These characters have a love and a following and an affinity that does not reflect in terms of the comic book sales. So it's easily to get those things confused and think, you should always have Black Panther comic out. No, you shouldn't, because you didn't have a Black Panther comic out before this.
But these writers should look at that and realize what did make them popular in the movies. They were likable. They were, look at what worked in that. It's not, it's never going to be, 1-to-1, like, oh my God, billions, but at least take what it was, the likable stuff. And you don't go to a movie, for the most part, a superhero movie, to see the main character, the superhero, be a piece of shit. Now it works sometimes, but not always. And it just is ridiculous. Like stuff like The Boys and stuff that's set up that
Hitch?
way.
Not Hitch. What was the Will Smith one where he was
I know what you're talking about. Hancock. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, and Lisa Roberts in the chat is right. The whole first Iron Man movie, the whole energia, the whole purpose of the Iron Man character in Iron Man movies is totally based off of Armor Wars. That's exactly where they took it from. They took it from Armor Wars and they played it out. So as someone earlier said,
well, they didn't take that. That was the Obadiah Stane story from what's his name?
No, but the motivation for the character is coming from Armor Wars. Yeah,
no,
No, the guy that did it afterwards. It's he died recently. He was an editor on Batman. Did a bunch of
Denny O'Neil.
Yes, Denny O'Neil, Obadiah Stane stuff.
Yeah, no, it took from that
obviously
as well,
being into Iron Wars.
Yeah, but the real motivation for that character, for the Tony Stark character, other than when they get into the futurist stuff later with Thanos, it's the Armor Wars. That's what it is. So somebody said earlier, with Marvel Phase 1 through 3, with all due respect, unless they just dig a little deeper, they pretty much mined everything that was any good from like pretty much 80 to like 95, and now they got to figure out what to do. Wars. Yeah, exactly. They already went for Infinity Gauntlet, so it's like you're not going to do it. What was the other ones after that? Can't remember them, but you have to go there. So it's like, they like, I agree with Jim. They should look at what's capturing people's imaginations from the movies and get that into the comics.
Get that flavor.
And right? Yeah, exactly. And it's just not aligned. Like to that point about you have Black Panther out in space where you got this movie out. It was the same thing with the Avengers movie when it came out. There was not one Avengers book on the shelves at that time.
When Doctor Strange 2 came out, he was dead.
Yeah, if you had a tangential interest in the Avengers and wanted to go into the comic shop, there was nothing that resembled that. Now they tried to do it with Avengers Assemble. I think it was Bendis and Bagley. Yeah, Bendis and Bagley. But even that one, it was like, dude, it's so far removed. So that's when people ask me, well, how did I get into comics? My thing was that I was a huge animation fan. I liked Super Friends and Teen Titans. And you can say what you want to say. By and large, when I went into a newsstand and I saw a Justice League of America comic up on the newsstand or a Teen Titans comic at that time on the newsstand, other than New Teen Titans, it pretty much lined up with what I saw on the television thing. So I could make a nice, smooth, easy transition into it.
Yeah. And it didn't have to be the stories. It was probably the characters.
It was the characters.
Yeah,
it was the characters. Yep. It was the characters.
All right, fellas. Well, let's start wrapping this up. Let's get into our comic book recommendations. It is you know, we do have the playoffs coming up. I got to do that, and
Yeah.
I got to record a couple of things before I do that. It's been an interesting week. I know you went to the store and got a Dune comic, Sully. What were you thinking? You should have talked to me about this because I read House of Atreides 2 years ago, but it was awful.
Oh man, I haven't touched any of this the Brian Herbert or the Kevin J. Anderson stuff. I'm strictly the 6 books and the movies, and I love Dune. But I'm here to give chances to comic books and to buy things I wouldn't buy necessarily off the shelf. Just okay, I'll try you, and I did. I tried Dune #1, House Harkonnen by Boom Studios, and this ended up being the Young Gurney Halleck Chronicles. And to boot, if any Dune fans out there, now we have a visual model for Duncan Idaho and Jason Momoa. He got race swapped. So I'm like, okay, sure, have fun. But yeah, that was like really, I don't want to say a waste of money.
Boom does good stuff, but they have not handled the Dune line well.
You know, the paper quality is nice. It's a well-produced magazine. The art's spot on, but it's just weak-ass story. And but I got Nightclub issue 2. That was pretty fun. I'm looking.
How much
forward
did
to
that cost you? How much
$1.99.
Oh, you cannot beat that. $2 for Mark Miller, Juan and Ramirez.
Yeah, all 6 together will cost you $12. You know what I mean? I picked up Flash 791. Love that. We all know. I picked up Stargirl 3 out of 6. This one had genuine feels. Jeff Johns is great at nailing DC feels.
He hit you right in the balls, didn't he?
Yeah. When Impulse runs up to Max Mercury and they're reunited, I'm a huge Impulse fan from the 90s, man. I really dug that. That is why these comic books, DC are making comic books made for us. And I'll leave it off with this one, your suggestion. I loved this. Yeah. This is World's Finest number 11 by Mark Waid and Dan Mora. And
go back to issue 1.
I'm gonna catch up. Yes, the art in this is great. I love the feeling of motion, and you can see this on Dick Grayson's utility belt. How it's like always swaying in the direction of his. It's just really good artwork, and being tuned into Mark Waid for 30 years, this was a great payoff. And that's all I'll say. But yeah, thank you very much. This has been my pick of the week is World's Finest 11.
I'm glad you finally got all that trade. You're going to be very happy to go back and discover all the stuff.
All you guys are saying, you of all people, you aren't reading this? I listen. I'm listening.
Felt like a Sully special.
I'm listening. Thank you very much for the suggestions. Keep them coming.
Absolutely. Gervais, what are you recommending this week? You gonna get
I'm right on the back of Sully with this one here because I'm with him. World's Finest number 11 definitely is continuing to deliver, and I'm with Wes. If you have not read this book, go back to number 1. It is worth it. Stargirl: The Lost Children. Another big shout out to a super fan, the animated concept, Duke Holiday. He turned me on to Stargirl: The Lost Children. So I got 1 and 2 and picked up 3. And if you're any kind of an Earth 2 or JSA fan, you definitely want to pick up Stargirl: The Lost Children. If you can find it, get the spring break special because that's the same team. Even though it was linked with that Infinite Frontier, which is probably why I dismissed it in the first place. Then Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 104. Rangers is still delivering, so if you're a Rangers fan or just a fan of good stories, definitely pick that up. Avengers: War Across Time number 1. A little pricey for my thing, but I picked it up anyway, and that's Paul Levitt's. I think he's the first time he's either doing a Marvel book or at least doing an Avengers book, and so far he's doing well with that. And Predator, I like the Predator series. If you have not read the Predator series yet, Kev Walker's doing some nice stuff on that. But this 1 through 6, that was some good stuff. I like good licensed comics, and Predator has been a good licensed comic. I can't recommend 7 because they're starting off with a new creative team and a new story arc, so we'll see on that one. And then, of course, for all of you out there who are real retro fans, and I recommended this way back in the beginning of the year, Dungeons and Dragons, the cartoon, The Adventure Begins Golden Book. I'll take anything that's Dungeons and Dragons TV show. So those are my picks.
Gervais, you were in the greater Chicago area. You're doing pop-ups every Saturday and Sunday. If people are just got here and they want to see Gervais in person, perhaps test out what you got as far as comic books, where can they find you?
We don't know the location just yet, but I would say visit us at Twitter at AnimatedCon. Follow us. Go to Facebook at Animated Concept. It's on 63rd, but I just don't know the exact location. So I want to just send somebody out to 63rd Street in Chicago. We might never see you
don't
again.
want to drive down the street.
That's right. We might never see you again. But keep an eye there. As soon as we get all the details down, which will hopefully be by Tuesday, hopefully by Wednesday, I'll be able to post everything up if you want to come by and see me. We'll let you know where we're going to be at, and how long we're going to be there for, and what time we're going to be there for. So we're looking forward to it. Thanks, Wes.
His Twitter handle is in the name there on the screen. So if you're looking for that, you'll get some updates there.
There you go.
Definitely be supporting Gervais and his endeavors as he's becoming his own publisher. Great stuff there. Drew, you and I are going to talk about the comic books that we're going to recommend after this video. The video will be up today before basically when the playoffs start. But you have a big project that kicked off on Kickstarter. Where can they find it?
Yes, they can find it on Kickstarter. Just type in Born of Blood #3 Special Edition. We're $160 away from $40,000. We just jumped up like another $3,000 during the live stream.
Congratulations.
Thank you to everyone backing it. We have a couple this weekend only tiers. We've got the Jamie Tyndall Born of Blood collector box, and we got the Shikari covers as well. They're available for this weekend only. I think we got like 36 hours left on those. So make sure you get those while you can, because once it's over, that is it. Not going to see them again.
Very nice. Josh, you haven't read a comic book in 2 weeks. You've been firing people left and right. We're glad you just made the show today. Are you recommending anything?
I mean, I'll tell you what I plan on purchasing, and it's 3 books that have already been mentioned, but it's World's Finest, The Flash, and Stargirl. I'll pretty much pick up anything Jeff Johns writes, because he actually understands the characters, and that's something that's lost on most writers these days. So,
very good. Last but not least, Jim, you were recommending Nightwing 100. It feels like
No,
you
I
come off that little
not. No, it's
7
funny.
out of 10. That's a solid
7 out
recommend.
of 10 is
7 out
to
of
me,
10 sounds like a recommendation.
Sounds like a solid
I
recommend.
went down to a 6 on the video, and a 6 to me is one of those where, hey, if you like the run or whatever, go check it out. If not, you'd be wary. I'm not recommending that. But I'm going to recommend the same thing that everybody else is. I'm going to recommend World's Finest, Flash, Stargirl, but I'll also throw in Spider-Man Lost Hunt 3. As Drew mentioned earlier, that's a solid one as well. But yeah, some good stuff at DC besides that Nightwing that I seem to be recommending to everybody. But
7 out of 10. Solid
7 out of 10.
That's what I heard.
Hey, 7 out of 10 sounds like a hey DC, I like your work, but I'm not gonna be so blatant to give you a circle jerk.
Well,
10
again,
out of 10.
I will admit a 7 out of 10.
I noticed
does
you.
seem
Did you
like,
notice me?
Look at this guy. He can't commit. That's what it seems. Talk to my wife. She'll agree. So 7 out of 10.
But
My
when it comes to,
marriage
you
right
gave
now,
your wife's
7 out of
meatloaf
10.
a 7 out of 10. Is that
No,
what you're
my wife's
saying?
meatloaf is a 2.
That's
terrible.
when it comes to meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
That is true. They always do say R.I.P.
Your wife has a meatloaf?
And she does it cowboy style, I believe. So
Oh.
we're all in here.
If people are wondering what the hell's going on, I did tell my cowboy story or my meatloaf story at the beginning of the video or the stream.
Yes. Cowboy
That's
style meatloaf might go up there with the pass the helmet as well. So we have all those
Cowboy
going. We have
style
our own
meatloaf.
deal. Yeah.
So, Jim, you do exclusive content on your Patreon. You do talk to people behind the scenes, and you release some good stuff in there. If people want to support Weird Science and what you guys are doing, how can they find you?
Well, you could go to the YouTube channel, which I'm doing more reviews, just more like straight reviews of.
And I want to
comics.
say you're welcome to all the people out there. I'm the one that told Jim.
You
like,
are.
What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, well, you're welcome. They'll
You got
probably
the
yell at
content.
you.
You make the video.
But you did end up telling me to do it, so I thought, maybe I won't be so lazy. So you could go that. That's a Weird Science Comics. Also, we have a regular DC Comics podcast, 3 Marvel podcasts, and 9 manga podcasts. So that's all weekly. Very weekly. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff. Just look up Weird Science Comics, manga, Marvel, DC. You'll find
And they can support you guys on Patreon.
Yeah, on our Patreon, we have even more stuff. Usually about 60 to 70
Do you put stuff behind a
extra
paywall?
things.
Is that what you're doing there, Jim?
Yes. Paywall. I'm telling you, if anybody's out there and wants me to sell out, please. I'll sell out within seconds and we'll all be happy. But yeah, there's up to like 60 or 70 individual unique, podcasts on the Patreon as well.
Very nice. Thank you all very much. I want to say thank you to everybody. I hope you're rooting with the Chiefs, like myself this weekend. Big playoff weekend. We're going to get to the conference championships next week.
Eagles.
We'll see what happens with the Eagles. It sounds like Jalen Hurts has been under the weather.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. We'll see you next weekend. We will not skip a day just for the playoffs. And yeah, keep it frosty. Have a good time.
See you later.